right?
Okay, well, it is 9:02, so we'll go ahead and get started. I know people are going to continue to join, but I just wanted to be respectful of everyone's time. Good morning and welcome to our 2021 CHSAA Roundtable. My name is Bethany Brookins and I will be starting us off today. We certainly miss our in-person meetings where we can personally connect with you, but we hope that today's agenda gives you a bit of everything from mental health tools and professional development to a glimpse of our upcoming bylaws and committee reports. And finally, we will be releasing the 2024 classifications for all of our sports. Thank you for your tireless work this year. We are so excited that Season B has started, and we are looking forward to providing participation opportunities for students in Season C and D as well. With regards to the logistics today, please type any questions into the chat. We will try our best to answer all of them. And then to end, I'll quote Phil Jackson: "The strength of the team is each individual member. The strength of each member is the team." Thank you for being valuable members and leaders on our CHSAA team. And at this point, I'll turn it over to our Commissioner, Rhonda Blanford-Green.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you again. I don't need to expand on Bethany. What a great opening. I've been providing commissioner updates throughout the year, and so I don't, again, being very respectful of your time, just a couple of updates on my end. Variances for Season C, the sports of field hockey, gymnastics, unified bowling, boys soccer, and volleyball were submitted to CDPHE and our state officials last week with a request for communication, any changes by February 15th. As you all know, there's always negotiations that go on after they come back because we advocate for some normalcy for our regular season and culminating event. So I felt a February 15th deadline would allow us the opportunity to come to the table again if there's things that are non-negotiable on CHSAA's end with what CDPHE or state officials would expect. And then again, proceeding like we have with these Zooms with administrators and the ability to just walk through the implementation process for Season C. So very excited. I think each time we come to the table, we learn something new. And we present those variances. So pretty much what we're asking for in the last round will transition into Season C. So just learning the game from this fall and feel very confident that we will be moving forward with Season C with not a lot of challenges. The other thing I wanted to bring up was just about waivers. If you guys can help me out a little bit with, I try to be as specific as possible in the waiver platform about what additional documentation is needed. So if you can communicate that to your parents, it probably would maybe de-escalate some of the phone calls, asking exactly what I would need, especially when we're with this modified season. There's a lot of emotions and expectancy to get those waivers approved as soon as possible. So I'm just asking for your help at the local level in communicating with your parents. I don't have the time to call each and every one of them. I try, but to be respectful of them, if you can help me out at the local level, that'd be great. And I want to end with just a thank you to the membership, to the CHSAA staff, board of directors, all of us. This isn't easy. But I keep going back to Monday when Season B sports started and the challenges that we had in December and November to resume Season B. And we're not all going to be on the same page about how things should roll out, but they do roll out. And so I would just like to say thank you. We can't do this without you. And I'm going to say this, but the emails of prayer are embraced more than you know, even the ones that are praying for us by name at their schools. We just appreciate everything that you're doing at the local level. And our kids are appreciative of the leadership and strength at the local level. So with that said, let's have a great day. This is about really truly preparing ourselves for the Legislative Council in May. And so it's an open forum. I think Ryan's our master of ceremonies. And so feel free to interject. This is about clarification. This isn't a regulatory structured meeting. It's about making sure we're prepared to take the association to the next level, not just for next year, but for years to come, as our bylaws do. They lead us and guide us. So thank you again. Looking forward to a great day. And I will turn it over to Leroy Lopez. Thank you, Leroy, for everything that CHSAA has done since the shutdown, the leadership, the professional development. We had high turnover this last year, and without that leadership from CHSAA, I think we would have a lot of people just raising hands all the time. So appreciate your leadership as well. Turn it over to Leroy.
Thank you, Rhonda, and thanks to everyone that logged on last week for our CHSAA outreach and our CHSAA workshop. I hope that everyone picked up a couple things that they could use over the next few weeks. As we go down the rest of the school year and the seasons, feel free to reach out to CHSAA. That's what we're here for. We're all about building those relationships and helping to support each other with professional development and feedback. So, always reach out to the CHSAA board if you have any questions or anything that you feel like you want to share with us. We'd love to hear it. Always need the feedback, and we're always trying to get better and just to help each other get better. So reach out to us. A couple of things I'd like to remind everyone about: membership. We of course are in a very similar situation to all the businesses and nonprofits around the country this year. So we do appreciate if everyone becomes a member. I know a lot of you have. I think we're very far along the way, but we still need everyone to be a part of that because we know what a great benefit that being a CHSAA member is. And if you have questions around membership, please reach out to myself or our executive director or visit our website if you can. And then next, I want to remind everyone or even share with some of us that we will be having the Cadet Conference in April. And it'll be April 27th to the 29th. It will be virtual this year, and we are looking forward to that, as it will be a first. But it is I think we've all come to recognize and appreciate that we've all gotten pretty decent at doing this online virtual stuff. And if you went to the national conference, again, it was great. It was all virtual, and we hope to replicate that in a lot of different ways. Same breakout sessions, same great speakers. Really looking forward to it, and hopefully we can connect and again help each other. Next, I would like to remind everyone that we do have awards coming up, and those nominations are due by February 1st. So please get those in to Matt Heckel. He heads up our awards committee and does a wonderful job for us. But please get those in if you have not discussed that within your league and want to nominate people. We all do tremendous work across the state, and it's nice to be recognized. And we try to recognize as many people as we possibly can. So get those awards in, or those nominations in. And then also a reminder that the Scholar Athlete Award is due February 20th as well. That's one that goes through the state, then to our section, and then nationally. And we've had some great success over the years with that, and having some national winners. And it's a really prestigious Scholar Athlete Award. So please get those in. We definitely appreciate all the nominations that everyone submits. And then finally, just to remind everyone that the national conference this year is going to be in Denver. We're all keeping our fingers crossed for in person, but we're very excited about it. The NIAAA is super excited about it, and it's a wonderful opportunity to show off our athletic directors in our state, and we're just super excited about that. And that'll be December 10th to 14th. If anyone has any questions, feel free to reach out. Love to hear from you guys. Looking forward to the conference, looking forward to recognizing people. And again, thanks to CHSAA for giving us a few minutes this morning to kind of talk about what we do and just to remind people that we have events coming up. So thank you very much, and look forward to hearing from you guys, and we'll talk soon.
Thanks, Leroy.
Go ahead, Rhonda.
Oh, I was just going to introduce you, Troy, but no introductions needed. I just want to, on behalf of the membership, CHSAA staff, board of directors, thank you for your leadership. This was a time when it was greatly needed to have someone in that chair that wasn't a reactor, and just led us through some of the most chaotic times with your calmness and just that quiet strength. So I'm going to turn it over to you, but I do want to publicly acknowledge your leadership during this time, and right person, right time, right place. So thank you.
Thank you, Rhonda, and thanks to all the CHSAA staff. Thanks, Leroy and the CADA board, for all that you guys are doing to support the ADs. We're getting through it. So I hope everyone's well. Good morning. I do wish, though, that we were all able to join together in person today and have the opportunity to share some handshakes, hugs, and stories. That's always a valued time when we're able to come together. And so I miss that, and I'm sure many of you do too. And I can definitely speak for all of us in that over the past 10 months, we've all at some point maxed our mental and physical capacity with the many challenges and unknowns we faced during the inception or since the inception of the pandemic. Many probably continue to feel redlined from time to time. I know I do. Well, I guess the bad news is there's no reset button. There's no do-over button. We've all had to deal with this adversity. For our new ADs and really even veteran ADs, I'm sure you've asked yourself multiple times, what have I gotten myself into? As hard as it is, I've tried to shift and embrace the mindset that adversity is the fertilizer of growth. We are all growing from the experiences during these challenging times. Challenges are just tests. Hard times are tests and character builders. Make sure you don't lose your spirit or focus, colleagues. It is in our greatest challenges that our greatest strengths are built. So the big question of the day, what are you doing to take care of yourself? I reflected on this, and I'm going to use the analogy of a flight attendant that I'm sure you've all heard if you have flown on a plane. Should the cabin lose pressure or there is an emergency, oxygen mask will automatically drop from the overhead area. To start the flow of oxygen, pull the mask towards you, place it firmly over your nose and mouth, and breathe normally. If you are traveling with a child or someone who requires assistance, secure your mask first and then assist the other person. I'm sure we've all heard that multiple times. So, are you taking care of yourself first? What is your source of oxygen? People are dependent on each and every one of us. We must be well so that we can serve, support, and help others. So as a gift from the CHSAA staff and the board of directors, I'm so grateful to have Nate Thompson with us this morning to provide some personal support. Nate is the director of social, emotional, and behavior services for Littleton Public Schools. He did not attend Harvard. He never played professional sports, and he is not popular on social media. His wife and kids don't laugh at his jokes, but do laugh at his fashion. He knows 2 songs on the banjo, and 100% of his memories of his high school sports accomplishments are only 40% accurate. I love it, Nate. Hopefully you have your favorite cup, mug, or water bottle nearby for this morning. Welcome, and here's Nate, keeping your cup full in a VUCA world.
Good morning, everybody. It's so great to join you with CHSAA today. I'm super excited to be here. I always think those bios are so silly, right? When you go to a conference and you see these people who are, they've got all these awards and they wrote a book, and I thought, most people have a lot of other things in their life that are real. And sometimes we have this pressure to feel perfect. So I thought maybe today's a great day for a bio that's actually real about my life. I'm so excited to be here. I'm the director of what we call social, emotional, and behavior services in Littleton schools. And my job involves a lot of kind of sad and dramatic stuff. And part of the reason that I'm here, I think, is just to share some thoughts with you guys and maybe support you as you walk through this kind of crazy journey you've had over the past almost a year now. I grew up in a very small town, Swink, Colorado. I don't know if there's any Arkansas Valley peeps out there. Definitely shout out to you guys. I grew up in a town of about 600. This is my hometown, Swink, Colorado. What a lot has changed, right, this year. And, as a parent, I've been blessed by all of the things that CHSAA and sports offer in public schools. I have one son who was a senior last year, who's now a senior and a freshman in college as an athlete. I have one who was a senior this year, and then I have a middle school daughter, all of which who have participated in sports. And my 2 boys spent time in these changing times last spring and this fall, participating because of the work of all of you. And I want to say thank you. I know you don't hear it enough. You know what a different time, right? And we're all getting a science lesson this past year in the periodic table of elements, right? This year, the element of surprise, that's that WTF on this mug here. That's the element of surprise that we're dealing with this year. And I wanted to just share a concept that's been helpful for me today. And so we're going to talk a little about VUCA. This may be how you're feeling this year, right? Some of you got into the Mandalorian, you got Baby Yoda, or I guess his name's not Yoda apparently, but last year I felt like this, young Baby Yoda, and this year, man, I look like the old Yoda. And I don't know if that's the same for you, but I feel like I've aged so much in the past year. But I want to recenter us on one concept, which is we are in an amazing time in the world. And sometimes we forget to stop to think about this is history that we're living. And when you look at those pictures 100 years ago of them dealing with what was called the Spanish flu at the time, they probably didn't realize that either, that 100 years from now, we'd be looking back saying, this is a 100-year event. So we are in an amazing time, but it's also a time of what we call VUCA. And I don't know how many of you are familiar with this, but VUCA is a term that the Army War College came up with in the 90s. And I think it's a great analogy for where we are, right? We're in a time that's volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous. And the Army was really trying to figure out how to train their young leaders in what to do when you're in this kind of an environment. And so volatility really is when we talk about the increasing pace of change, right? And you know that season B just started. Things that were told to you today may change tomorrow, right? You may be telling your coaches different things tomorrow based on how fast things are changing. We also know that uncertainty is really the unpredictability of what's going to happen in the future. The complexity of what we have going on right now, right? All these interconnected parts and organizations all involved in these decisions, that really describes what we're dealing with. And the last piece around ambiguity, I think, is really, really important. And one of the quotes that really got me about this piece is, when you have a lot of smart people all looking at the same data, coming up with different conclusions, and they all seem like they're right or making good points, that's when things are really ambiguous. And that's the environment we've been living in, right? And so when you're in this VUCA world, this VUCA environment, as the Army calls it, it's like juggling, right? So some of you may know how to juggle. Some of you may think you know how to juggle and really don't. That's more like me. Some of you actually may be really good jugglers. But when you think about all the things you're having to juggle right now as part of your life, and I'm not talking just your work life, I'm talking your home life. It's hard, right? And while you're juggling, your body gets tired, your brain gets tired. And when you throw a lot of emotional, important things in there, like your family, some of those balls are made out of glass, right? They're not all soft balls that can drop and be picked up. Some of these are really valuable things that we don't want to mess up in our life. And so I think it's a great analogy to look at this cartoon here from The Symptoms of what it's like. You may be juggling stuff that feels like a chainsaw, right? You got people coming at you like a spider monkey. They're so angry. You may have seasons you're trying to schedule, and you've got things coming down from your district or from your health department. So you feel like you're juggling all these things, and it's easy to get distracted. This year, I felt like this sometimes. I don't know how many of you feel like you're juggling stuff you can't even see. This is one of my favorite jiffies from The Office, where D'Angelo there is putting on this amazing juggling show, and everybody's going, "What are you juggling?" That's what it's felt like sometimes this year. Is I don't even know what I'm juggling anymore. I feel like I'm just doing it, and stuff is coming, right? So when we're doing that, it's easy to let our guard down. We worry that we're going to miss things. What toll does that take on our brain and on our body, right? And that's what we really are thinking about today. Some of our common responses when we're juggling like this are things like, maybe I want to blame people, or I want to say, just suck it up, let's get through this. I may want to pass the buck, right? All of those are natural responses. And in the therapy world, there's a couple things that I found really, really important. I used to be a therapist before I came into education, and this quote, I think, is one of those really, really important things, because as all of you, whether you're dealing with stuff coming from above or coming from, below you in terms of parents and students, this quote from Barbara Fredrickson is amazing, which is, "The negative screams at you and the positive only whispers," right? Does anybody identify with that? And you know why? Because our brains are wired that way. Our brains are wired to focus on the negative and threats that come to our life. And it's part of keeping us safe. But when we integrate those things, we integrate those negatives way more at a deeper level and a longer term level than we do those positives. And that's something we have to consciously fight against, right? So that's something that I think is really, really important for us to remember. The other thing that sometimes is natural, and this comes out of kind of what we call the drama triangle when we work with families, and we tend to sometimes identify with this triangle, and we can get caught in this cycle of the drama triangle, right? Who's the victim? Who's the perpetrator? Who's the rescuer? And that sometimes is a natural thing to do when we're being defensive and we're feeling like we don't have control over things. But we have to be very careful not to get caught in that drama triangle, because the truth is, very often we're not in the corner of the triangle we think we are, or maybe someone else thinks we're in that corner of the triangle, right? And it can be very easy to put yourself in the place of a victim or a rescuer when in other people may be seeing you as that persecutor or perpetrator. So I just want to caution folks to really be thoughtful about not getting caught in that drama triangle. It's not healthy for you. It keeps you in that anxiety phase. So as much as you can, when you realize that other people are trying to do that, or you're getting caught in that, to step back and say, I'm not going to get caught in that drama triangle, right? You see this all the time on social media, and we have to be very careful because it lends itself to this very, very easily. So I want to just reinforce that. This morning, I want to start with just how does stress show up for you? So, we're all different, and some people are great with change and great with unpredictability, and those people are usually the ones that can show up and they've got their practice game plan in their head, or they've got everything ready to go. And there's other people who really struggle with unpredictability in this VUCA environment. But even if you're someone who likes to improv and you can deal with whatever comes to you, that can only go on for so long, right? We all have to have some organization in our life before it starts really stressing us out. And all of those VUCA components have an impact on everybody, because we are human beings are designed to seek some order, right? And some normalcy and routine. So I want to start today with just asking you to be brave. Put in the chat feature here today, how does stress show up for you? I'll start off. For me, when I get stressed, I get quiet. I probably eat the wrong stuff. I isolate myself a little bit, and I really got to just kind of pull away. And that's not always good for me, but that's how it shows up for me sometimes. So I want to ask, just be brave, put in the chat, what's a way that stress shows up for you? Maybe in your body, maybe in how you treat people. Some people say, yeah, Sarah says, I don't sleep well. Exactly. That's another one for me as well. Unhealthy eating, no exercise. Yep. When you try to carry the burden, right? You got to understand you're not in control. These are great, you guys. Irritability. I might get irritable sometimes. Stress shows up in your body, right? Your neck, your back. All of those things are normal, natural things. Overeating, overthinking, being easily triggered, all those things, gaining weight. It's a part of dealing with stress. And so we're going to talk a little bit more today about how do we manage that, and how do we keep that stress from going to a level that's really, really going to impact us in the long term. And so one of the things I would really encourage you to do as leaders is to make sure you're in touch with the coaches that you oversee, with the colleagues, with student athletes, around being in touch with how does stress show up for you, and how do you know when your stress level is high, because you can't deal with it if you don't recognize it, right? So that's a really important aspect. We do know that stress can be toxic. And so this continuum, I think, is a really helpful one, because what this really shows us is that in general, stress can go on a full continuum from being positive and really creating growth in us. But we also can get to the toxic stage, right? And so as people are listening, Corey's saying, I'm walking around listening to this as I'm getting ready, multitasking. You're right. That's a great example of all the things we have to manage. We do need to know when stress can become toxic for us. And sometimes that's hard. When you're a driver, you're someone who's pushing, you're always achieving. And let's face it, a lot of us that are involved in athletics and activities are competitive people. We don't want to show any weakness. So let's just be real honest about that, right? How do we make sure we know that we're not on that end where stress is becoming toxic? Here's a couple things to think about. One, Positive stress really is something that is a little more predictable. So we know we put ourselves in a stressful situation to see how we're going to compete, right? Like a competition. We know it's coming. We're preparing for that. It's stressful, but it can be a growth achieving because it's predictable. If it's moderate, right? Not too intense, there's some control to it. So we kind of know what we're getting into, really can create growth. Tolerable stress kind of in the middle, when you may have a balance of these. But when it gets to toxic is we know when things are so unpredictable, they're severe, they're prolonged, and they're unbuffered. And that unbuffered is a really important piece because we know that kids get exposed to all kinds of stress and trauma in their lives. And this is a concept we train our staff in here in Littleton to understand, what that can be like for kids when they're exposed to that long term and some things that can become toxic. But even for you as people and as leaders and as human beings, you need to understand that if you don't have supports and buffers in your life, so people who are going to help counteract that negative, all those negative comments that come in, people who are going to lift you up when you're down, people who are going to make you laugh. If you don't have those, you're more likely to succumb to toxic stress, which means your body actually develops chemicals that makes you unwell. Right. And that can come out in memory. I don't know how many of you feel like you've been a lot more foggy and forgetting things a lot more quickly than normal. That is a part of when you're getting to that toxic stress phase, right? Your brain starts to work more slowly, starts to protect itself. Your body starts exuding these things, right? You may not be feeling as well. You may be having more aches and pains or stomach issues. So this is the task that we have to, for ourselves and for each other, really, really be attuned to when stress is becoming toxic. And that's why we check in with each other, right? It's not about that we have to be each other's therapists or counselors. What we mostly need from other people is this human buffering, right? Of giving me the humor, giving me some perspective, giving me an opportunity to talk or do something that's outside of my normal stressful juggling that we're talking about. So really being attuned to that toxic stress is important. And I would encourage you to actually use that language with each other. I feel like I'm getting to that toxic level, and what can I do? Or just be honest, tell your coaches or your staff, hey, stress can become toxic. And if you feel like you're getting to that level, you need to let me know so we can talk through it, right? Some people are going to be more stressed by the cognitive tasks of this and having to change so quickly. Other people are going to be more challenged by the emotional task of this because they don't like when students or parents are upset. And so people are going to be a little bit different, but they can still get to that toxic level, right? So, okay. So let's use an analogy here to kind of help us think through how we keep things from becoming toxic. So I want you to grab your cup. If you got a cup or a mug or something with that, because this is our visual for today. So those of you who are on screen, if you've got one, hold it up, show us your cup or your mug. All right. We got green M&Ms running nice. We got water bottles. All right. Some good mugs. All right. Brandon's got a Super Bowl 50. I like that. That's good. Man, remember when we were in the Super Bowl? Gosh, seems like it was like forever ago. Yeah. So you guys, I showed you my cup up there. You may have thought I was joking, but this is actually my unicorn mug, and my unicorn mug actually changes colors when I put hot stuff in it. And the reason we wanted to talk about the mug today is because it's really important that you know how to fill your cup up, and you need to be aware of what empties your cup and what fills your cup up. And so I want you just for a second, just take a second. We're going to take about 1 minute here, and I want you to think about two things. I want you to think about what are the things that are emptying your cup right now in your life. And it can be personal, it can be professional, it can have to do with, all the things we're talking about today with the challenges of athletics and activities. So I want you to take a second and just think about those things that empty your cup. Okay. We're going to have some uncomfortable silence for about 30 seconds here. All right. So you got your cup, you're looking at your cup, you're thinking about how important it is to keep your cup full. And you've got those things that empty your cup, right? And for me, I'll be honest with you, sometimes what empties my cup is an interaction that I have with an angry parent or an angry colleague who doesn't understand why we're doing something. Something that empties my cup is when I have to deal with really sad situations like a child abuse incident or a suicide or something really significant like that in a school. Those things empty my cup. It takes a lot of energy, right? And it pushes my stress level. But I want you to take a second now and I want you to think about the things that fill your cup up, right? What are the things that help you when you're down and that put some liquid back in there that can help sustain you? So if you want to write it down, write it down. Just the act of taking this time to think this through is helpful for your brain and your body. And I know they seem like little silly activities to do, but these little exercises we call kind of bite-sized resilience tools, they actually are scientifically proven to be as effective as Prozac. Are you aware of that? When you do things that consciously force yourself to think through what helps you and how you focus on reducing stress and take care of yourself, it actually is scientifically proven to help you. And that's why this positive psychology thing has gone so far. And you all, out of everybody, should understand that, because you know the influence that coaching has, that teaching has, that role modeling has, and actually talking through and practicing things has for execution, right? It cracks me up nowadays. Have you ever heard that there's a new job? It's called an influencer. Anybody know what an influencer is? It's like these people who have all these followers on social media. You're an influencer. It just cracks me up. I saw someone the other day and that was their job title, influencer, social media influencer. I'm like, when did that become a job? Are they like putting that on the career survey now? Like, what do you want to be when you grow up? I want to be an influencer. You know what? Coaches are the original influencers. And when we say influencer, we're not talking about social media where, hey, a company pays me and I get everybody to use this product because I post these great pictures on Instagram or Twitter. An influencer is somebody who does things and teaches things and exudes things that are good, right? For the positive, and helps influence someone in a positive way. And so we're going to talk in a second about how you take this and how you have a role as a leader in showing other people how to take care of themselves and deal with that toxic stress too. That's really what influencing is about. It's not about social media and who likes you or who takes the best Photoshop picture. Filling your cup back up takes support people in your life. And that's really, really important. And so where I get worried is when people feel really isolated and either they choose not to pull other people into their lives and have that social support system, or they really don't want those people, or they can't get those people around them. They're isolated. So that's a really important factor, is who do you have around you, right? We've talked about that a couple times. The other thing I'd like you to do, we're going to do another real quick thing here with the chat. Any of you have fake coping skills? Like you think it's something that actually helps you, but in reality, it's not really good or healthy for you, right? These are like faux or fake coping skills. I personally have one. It's like putting fruit in my large chocolate shake. It makes me feel better that I'm eating fruit. It's probably not really good for me, but it makes me feel better. Put in the chat, what's your fake coping skill? What do you do? Get drinking for some people? Yes. I actually worked at a place one time when they would use that to say, let's go get some coping skills after work. That was the term they used for it. It was that overt. But what else do people use as fake coping skills? Put it in the chat. TV, yes. Anybody binge watch Ted Lasso yet? That's definitely some coping skills, or at least it feels like it. Walks actually have some really good, helpful therapeutic value. So that's probably a real coping skill for most people. Overeating is a common one. How about anybody out there? You get dressed up to work out and then you never actually work out. You just walk around in your workout clothes, get your yoga pants on, or your, whatever. You say you're going to go running, then you actually just walk down the corner store and get a donut or something. Like, it's important to know that sometimes those things make us feel better and they're a distraction, but not all of them are good for us. So it is important to think through having some real coping skills in your life, some real ways to take care of yourself, in addition to those things that you think are helping you, but really aren't. So a good question to ask on this one is, does this make me feel better beyond an hour, right? So McDonald's drive-thru, that's a really comforting thing for about 30 minutes, right? And then after that, you go, oh man, why did I do that? But we all have to have some of those things. It's just a matter of that not being your only skill, right? Someone mentioned venting with no solution in mind. That sometimes feels good, right? To just vent. But yeah, you do have to follow it up with, what are we going to do about this and how do we get to the problem solve part, right? Schitt's Creek, that's a pretty good one too. I've heard that one's really good, and I have not personally seen that one. So thanks to those of you who shared your fake coping skill. Just remind yourselves that you do need to have those real coping skills as well. The next thing is really, okay, well, what do we do about this? We live in this VUCA environment. There's a lot we can't control. You know, we all want to feel competent, right? We all want to do a good job. You know, we don't always want to be the person who's like blaming it on somebody else, or, you know, saying it's not my fault. Like, we all have to deal with that. What are some ways to keep yourself resilient? Well, here's a few things to take away. And I just want to go through these real quickly. So one, perspective. It's really important for all of us to help each other with perspective. If we don't pull back and say, wait a minute, this isn't the first time our country's been in a pandemic. What was it like in 1919 when there was a pandemic, right? When, you know, people barely were even aware of starting to drive cars, and a lot of places didn't have any kind of electric heat or any of that stuff, right? So in perspective, those people dealt with, you know, a much more difficult situation probably than we are with some of the comforts we have. Ours is different. But it's important to give some perspective, right? Give some perspective to ourselves, to our coaches and activity sponsors, to our students. Help role model that for them of like, that's a tool we need. We need to talk to ourselves in our brain and say, hey, big picture wise, this is going to end at some point. Big picture wise, humans have been through this before, right? So these are important perspective strategies we use. The second thing is gratitude. There really is a huge body of literature now about gratitude and how it helps us. And just the act of saying thank you, and in some cases, there's research about actually writing it down. It is really, really powerful. The 3 good things thing that some people have used is a tool where you write down 3 good things that happened in your day and what your part was in those. And the research on that, like I mentioned earlier, is that it's more effective than Prozac for depression. Isn't that amazing? Just focusing on gratitude and what you're thankful for puts your brain in that mode to push away the negative and really focus on that positive, which is what we know we need to be healthy. Humor has also got a lot of research behind it, and we need humor. And some people are funnier than others. Let's just be honest, right? It's not about necessarily that you have to be the funny one. It's that you have to expose yourself to stuff that makes you laugh and gives you joy. If you're not doing that, you're missing a big part of anti-stress and keeping that stress from becoming toxic in your life. So humor is really, really important. Whether that's, you know, being around funny people, watching funny stuff on TV, looking up really good dad jokes, which is my preference, or looking at memes or those kind of things. That's an important piece of resilience. And then lastly, what I call good peeps. You have to have good people in your life. Right. And so I really encourage you to think through, if you had to put on your 5 fingers, who are the people in your life that if you had to go through a really tough, difficult, stressful situation, you know, maybe like a pandemic, who are those people that you would turn to if you needed support? And are you in touch with those people? Right. You may have those people in your life, but you may not have talked to them for 10 years. I have some great friends from college growing up that are some of the best friends I have in the world, but I don't do a great job of facilitating that connection. So making sure you have those people in your life, and at least 5 around you that you can trust and support, and that are going to be there for you. They're going to be honest with you, right? They're going to make you laugh. All of those things, you have to have good peeps. Before we leave this, I just want to share this link that's on this slide is from Duke University. And Duke has a center. Their entire focus is on resilience for healthcare workers. And they've developed some what they call bite-sized resilience tools. And they're really short, kind of like little activities that you sign up for. You put your email in there, and then it guides you through. Some of them are 2 days long, some of them are 8 days long, but they're short activities like the 3 good things, like focusing on awe in your life and what, you know, gives you joy. And it actually sends you emails, and each day you participate in these activities. And they're a great thing that you can use with your team, with your colleagues. You can use it with your coaches. You can have coaches use it with students as a way to just practice those things we were talking about, to help yourself focus on those positives and resilience and not get stuck in the toxic stress loop. So I would encourage you to go check that out. There's a whole bunch of them, and they're really easy to sign up for and do. We've done them in our district multiple times in different situations. And kids really actually like them. They get an email each day, and you put your stuff in, and it kind of guides you through this intervention of focusing on really important things for your resilience. So I would encourage you to check that out when you get a minute. And then let's talk about leadership. So you are all in leadership roles in some format, right? And some of you may be in leaders professionally, but you also may be in leadership roles in your family, dealing with maybe aging parents or kids, or extended family situations, right? So what are some strategies when the Army's thinking about like, okay, how do we manage VUCA, and what can we do as leaders to mitigate the challenges of this VUCA system? Here's a few things that I think would be helpful just as your roles. One, game plan and pencil, right? We've all learned to do that in the last, 11 months, which is, we're not going to have the plan all drawn out and colored in and finished the way that we normally like that to be, or many of us normally like that to be. We have to put those things in pencil, be ready to rewrite, prepare our own minds for the fact that this could go on for a while, right? So there's some self-talk strategies in this too of like, hey, this may go on for a while. And how am I going to make sure that I'm balancing that for myself and preparing people for that? At the same time, sharing some of that hope and sharing some of the reasons why we want to continue participating and doing all the things that we can to support kids and being active. So really game planning in pencil. The second is what I'm just calling agility drills. And we all know what agility drills are, right? I, as a coach, when I was coaching youth sports, that's the first thing you start with is agility drills, right? You got to get yourself limber, get yourself ready. And in this situation, we have to keep developing our systems of rapid communication. And so for some of you, this may be a really point of pain right now, which is how do I just communicate? When new things come down from the health department or from CHSAA or from the state or, whatever, how do I communicate that to my coaches and my players? And maybe there's other stuff that's coming out nationally in research and you feel like you have to stay on top of everything. Sit down, think through it as a team and think through what are our systems for that communication, and then put those out to people and say, here's how we're going to communicate. I've seen CHSAA do some of that in the last year, right? You're having to come out with ways for rapid communication to be disseminated much more quickly and differently than we ever had to in the past. So if you're struggling with that, I would encourage you to work with your team and really think through those options. And there are some really cool technology tools you can use that for. And there's some decisions you may need to make around, hey, we're not going to give updates every single day. That's too much, but we may do it every 2 days or when a big change happens. So just thinking through that and being agile with communication. And then the last big thing to take away really is being real. And I want to go back to this piece about why I put my bio the way it did, right? So yes, I could have put in there all the cool things I've done in my life and those kind of things. Almost won a state championship in high school, football and basketball, but didn't happen, right? I didn't put all those fancy things in there. We have to be real, and we need to show our coaches, our athletes, our families that sometimes I'm dealing with the chaos and I'm trying to figure this out. And here's some ways that I do that. And so really being able to share, this is probably the most powerful thing that I want coaches to hear is you don't have to be so tough that you don't show any weakness. Your kids, your parents, your colleagues need you to be real. They need you to share, how are you getting through this? How are you dealing with all that chaos and the changing rules and the changing issues? And oh my gosh, kids are going to have to wear masks during basketball and all these things. Share how you're dealing with that. What are your personal strategies, right? Instead of just going down that triangle road of saying, well, here's the perpetrator, here's the rescuer, and whatever, I'm the victim. Share with people. These are some things I'm doing. I'm trying to give myself perspective. I'm thinking about these things. I'm remembering some of these other good things that we have that are blessings right now that maybe could be gone, right? That we still have. I'm taking care of myself. Here's some things I'm doing to make myself laugh, right? Here's some ways I'm connecting with people in the ways that I can. We need you all as leaders for our young people to role model that, to share that, to be honest about that, and not just kind of take this approach of, either I'm going to be kind of the funny coach who just laughs about everything, or I'm going to ignore it and kind of, toughen up. Just be honest. Just be honest with kids about, yeah, this sucks. And here's what I'm doing to manage it. And here's some things when I was your age, here's some things that I did, when stuff like this happened. Right. So just being really, really honest. Okay. Helping your colleagues out is really, really important. someone just mentioned in the chat, just how do you do that? Having those mentors who can also help you out and give you some advice when you're stuck in those really tough situations. So those are three things just as leaders during VUCA that you can do. And I think in your roles, there's other things as well. And I know we've got some amazing creative things. I've seen our high school athletic directors in our district and our district AD do some pretty amazing things to adapt. And I can't tell you the complexity of what you're dealing with. I deal with mental health and really difficult emotional things, but the cognitive tasks that you guys have had to do to blend that with emotional this year and something that's so deeply emotional to kids and their parents, I think you've dealt with some of the most difficult things we're dealing with in this pandemic. So to close today, I want to give you guys some motivation, and I want to talk to you about perseverance, because we can always go farther than we think. And this story, I don't know if any of you are familiar with this. If you're not, you need to be familiar with it. Chris Nikic is the first person with Down syndrome to complete an Ironman, a full Ironman triathlon. And I have a daughter with Down syndrome who's in 7th grade. And just knowing how that developmental disability impacts your body and what you can physically do, this is an astounding achievement, you guys. This is Tom Brady 10th Super Bowl level stuff for a young man with Down syndrome to complete this task. And it's gotten some recognition, but I take this as a challenge to myself in terms of perseverance. We can always go farther than we think we can. And that's not to say, we're going to push ourselves to the point of exhaustion and falling down. You still have to be real about that. It took Chris a really, really long time to complete this Ironman, but he did it. And I want to give that encouragement to you today. We're going to make it through this pandemic. We really are. And we're going to overcome, and we're going to have some kids who come through this, honestly, with some life perspective that's going to go on for 100 years. It's going to go on to the end of their lives that they are going to bring to the world. And we have to help reframe that for them, because just as my senior in high school now and my college freshman, we're arguing about who had it worse in terms of the pandemic and their high school careers, they're also going to gain some things from this. So remember, Chris, when you start thinking about how difficult this is and when are we going to come out the other side. And so I want to wrap it up by saying, if anybody wants to reach out, if they have questions or want to know more about kind of some of the things we talked about today, I'm happy to provide those. I will give my slides on a PDF to Chris or to Ryan and the staff, and they can send that out to everybody. Thank you so much for this opportunity, Rhonda and Troy and the team, and really, really privileged to be able to bring this message to you today.
Wow, that was amazing. Thank you, Nate. Thank you, Nate. Any comments or anybody? Just I was looking through the chats, and this was something we all needed. Kind of saw some red flags on probably how I'm handling things. So I just appreciate, and staff has been texting each other back and forth. So moving on to the next bullet point of our agenda. I think we introduced last year about this time the launch of the Coaches app. And because of the pandemic, we held off on a statewide launch, but we're ready to go. And the beauty of this is we've been able to partner some of the professional development and webinars with another one of our partners, which is Varsity and BSN. And so I'm going to give a short introduction. We call them the two Joes that are responsible for the app We Coach that has now been specialized for Colorado coaches. And so at this time, I'm going to introduce one of the Joes, Joe Brassard, and then Joe New is on as well. So leaving it open for Joe Brassard.
Hello, hello.
Morning.
Hey, sorry, I just lost my feed for a second. Great technology. Good morning to everybody. It happened not this past fall, but the fall before that we were at the softball championships, the state championships, and Rhonda and Joe New and myself, Tom Robinson, and Adam Bright, we were all in the room at the same time, and the CHSAA staff was making the comment, man, we need all of the coaches to know that they need to go to this specific gate because things are getting bogged down. And if they would all go to this one gate at this, we'd be able to start all the games on time. And that conversation began this concept of an app where we could push the notifications to every coach that needed to know this information right now. We didn't have the ability to send a group text to all the softball coaches, or we didn't think they would actually watch it or look at an email. And so this idea of, hey, how do we communicate right now to the most important people in our state, the coaches, how do we get them the information they need? And so that's where Coach Colorado was birthed. The app was an answer to a dilemma that I think we all have. This is pre-pandemic, pre-COVID, but it certainly makes a lot of sense right now. We have an app and it's ready to go. It's on your Apple Store or Google Play. And if you have a phone, and if you're not on it on your call right now, you can actually go on your phone and look up Coach Colorado. And this is an app that is a practical tool for coaches specifically in the state of Colorado. To my knowledge, and Rhonda knows a lot more commissioners are across the nation than I do, but to my knowledge, we're the only state that has an app that's made specifically for the coaches in a specific area. And so it's a free app. It's for you. It's a tool that can be used. And I'm just excited to see how you all as administrators and as coaches are going to use this. My team at We Coach are controlling the back end of it. And we are trying to make sure that you have the information that that you want pushed to you, but it also has the opportunity for you to create groups. And if you'll create the groups that you can have an open group where right currently there's, I don't know, 20 groups on here on the app, and everything from cheer coaches to soccer coaches to there's a group just for assistant coaches. They can share their woes or their victories. There's a group for COVID defense. What are your best practices? What are you guys doing right now for that? There's lots of different groups on here. Some of those groups are closed where you can decide, hey, I only want my staff to be able to get on there, or I only want the people from my sport to get on there, or I only want the people from my specific position group if I'm the head coach and I just want to talk to those specific coaches. This is all in one place where you can get not only live feeds and get to know coaches from around the state a little better, but you can actually control which groups you want in your own app. Now you can also create an open group if you're more just kind of listening to Nate Thompson and trying to see how there's different ways to have your happy bug go. Maybe you want to connect with a lot of people and you're an extrovert. You can have an open group and you can just create something fun that you want to say, hey, I want to talk to as many people in the state as I can because we have something in common. Another highlight feature for this app is that you can have announcements where Rhonda could actually just go on this app. She can create an announcement that's really important. It'll go to everybody who is on this app. And we hope that there will be thousands of coaches and administrators that will use it. And she can communicate with you with a click of a button. She can make a video of herself saying, hey, this is an emergency thing that's going on. She's a little bit shy, which is surprising because she's on screen so much, but she's a little bit shy to make her own videos. But if she needed to, she could do that. Adam Bright could say, hey, I want to talk specifically and to the wrestling coaches that are across the state. And those changes are happening all the time because of COVID. Here's the latest that's going on with wrestling coaches. So all of that can happen in one place, and it's all built and it's ready to go. Some of the things I'm most excited about are information for education. We have videos on here. There's a library in this app. It looks kind of like this. and it's just got a list of different categories. And one of those categories is just, it's called videos. Another is called CHSAA podcasts, where there are different info for education, where you could take and I enjoyed listening to Nate on here, but to have Nate Thompson, if he said something that you would want your staff or your league to know more about, you could post this right on here and everybody would have access to it. People can comment on the video that's going on, and it's just all encased in here. It's not on Facebook, it's not on Twitter, it's not for parents to see. This is for you and your coaches to communicate. And so that I'm really excited about that part. It's all in one place and it's yours. One of the things that we have on this, and I'm almost done, but on the bottom of this menu in the library is a thing called Team Tools and Lessons. And we have our partner, BSN, has generously come alongside of CHSAA and said, hey, we will make, since we can't get coaches to come to our conventions and we can't do these coaches conferences like we love to do, we just don't have that ability to do that right now. And it's cool to do Zoom calls, but what do we do with those speeches that these great high level coaches are actually giving? Well, we can put them right here in the library under Team Tools and Lessons. I've uploaded about 7 or 8 of those videos for an example for you. Coaches, there's an assistant basketball coach from University of Michigan talking about the importance of practice. He's on there. We have a physical therapist talking about the 5 stretches that you can do to help keep your athletes as limber and healthy as possible. So those are actually in the health section. So there's lots of different videos that we can put on here. The content is being driven by you because you're important. But I'm so excited that BSN has allowed us to have access to this. They have a massive library of great videos going back as far as we want. Actually, they can send us videos from 10 years ago and we can put stuff up there, some of the greatest hits, if you will. And it's something that we can share and comment, and you can even create your own videos on there. But Rhonda, unless you have a specific question, I'm ready to just turn this over to BSN, and I hope to see all of you on the Coach Colorado app.
Thanks, Joe. And we are going to just pass the baton over to Scott, one of our incredible partners with CHSAA, BSN, Herf Jones, and Varsity, that triplicate of power that supports all that we're doing at CHSAA. So Scott, I'll turn it over to you.
Great. Thanks, Rhonda. Good morning, everyone. Thanks for the opportunity to join you for a few minutes here today. Just want to speak a little bit about who Varsity Brands is, who BSN is. Hopefully, most of you are familiar with us in some respect. Varsity Brands consists of the BSN Sports, Herf Jones, and the Varsity Spirit families, all under one umbrella. We can really offer our products head to toe across the entire campus, from uniforms, athletic equipment, construction, cheer, band, yearbook, graduation, facility branding, things of that sort. Really, why we're here today, though, is to talk about the app and the webinars that we have available to you. As Joe mentioned, I think there's 6 or 7 loaded right now. But what BSN is really aiming to do is to save coaches time. In the pandemic, when schools are shut down and you're not being able to meet with your players, I know coaches and athletic directors are starved for information. So BSN has come up with a webinar platform. Just in 2020, we've hosted over 100 webinars. Again, as Joe mentioned, from mental health to sports specific, recovery techniques, things of that sort. So over 100 webinars hosted last year. We had over 65,000 coaches in attendance, virtual attendance. And there's currently over 150 videos on our platform that are going to be available over time through the app. We're not going to load them all at once. We'll filter them in. but to give you guys plenty of content to look at. What we're really hoping to get out of this, obviously, is to get some more participation from you, the athletic directors, filter down to your coaches, and give them a way to pass along information. It's a learning opportunity. Very, very high profile athletes, coaches. Mark Rule from the Carolina Panthers hosted a webinar that'll be on here in the next couple of weeks, available to you guys. Again, professional athletes, trainers, very, very good information that is available to everyone on the Coach Colorado app, and will be fed through there over the coming months. We are going to have a drawing. We'd like to encourage you guys to pass the information down to your coaches. I believe we're going through February 1st, and we're going to take a list of all the registrations on the app, and there's going to be a drawing for 4 different prizes. The number one is going to be an experience with one of our brand ambassadors. Anyone from Kevin Atlas, we'll let you guys choose. I'm not sure if you guys know who Kevin Atlas is. If you Google him, he's one of our brand ambassadors that talks about his history of growing up with a disability. He's the first college athlete, Division I scholarship athlete to play with a disability. He's only got one arm, and he played at Manhattan College. So fantastic speaker, down to Jessica Hardy, an Olympic swimmer. You guys will have the option of which brand ambassador to have for your entire staff, however you'd like to arrange that. So that's going to be prize number one. And then there'll be 3 $100 gift cards to BSN Sports, redeemable through me, and Rhonda will pass along that information. So anyway, please encourage your coaches to sign up for the app, use the content, and we'd love to hear some feedback from that as well. That's all I've got today, Rhonda. I appreciate the time again. We look forward to working with all of you in the future.
Thank you. Thank you, Scott. And again, what we're encouraging your coaches to do during this kind of campaign is to register for the coaches app, and that will make them eligible for the giveaways with BSN, as well as having a top level speaker at no cost that's normally around a $2,000 appearance fee to come and speak to either your staff or your coaches and your athletes. So I have to say this because you know me, I look at all the faces, and these are groundbreaking opportunities. Scott has said this, BSN works with 50 other state associations, and no other state association is moving into this space with a one-on-one customized app for the coaches that allows us to communicate one-on-one. So I appreciate you taking the time to listen, because these are the things that the CHSAA Association does. They get into those lanes early on, and then we're able to bring in some heavy hitters to support this big vision of communication and support for our membership and all the different arms of our membership. So thank you, Joe Brassard. Thank you, Scott. We are excited about this launch, and I know that we had some challenges for the last 6 months, but everybody's on board, and hopefully we can get those giveaways done as soon as possible. So with that said, we are ahead of schedule, and somebody texted me and said, Rhonda, please give us 5 minutes. And so if you guys would, if you don't mind, I think we'll take a 5-minute break, and then Bethany will come back in and we'll begin on the classification. So 5 minutes, and then we'll be back with Bethany up. So thank you again, Rhonda, Joe and Scott.
Rhonda, I think Joe was trying to say something, I think just before we went to break.
Oh, is that what that meant? Okay.
Yeah. Just one thing, there was an onboarding sheet with instructions if anybody needs that. Ryan has that. I don't know if it'll be sent to everyone or how that works, but I also posted my phone number and email in the comments. If any of you have any questions or comments, we can talk that through.
Okay, if you can send that to me, Joe, again, then we'll get that out. So send it to me in an attachment, and we'll get it out to the membership so they can share it with the coaches, and we can support the campaign. So appreciate it. All right, 5 minutes, everyone. So back at 10:10.
Okay, it's 10:10. I'm going to keep us on schedule here, and Randy, you're ready to go. So we are going to now go and talk a little bit about the 2024 classifications that the CHSAA staff have been working on for the past 2 weeks. I'm going to turn it over to Chairperson Randy Holman to give us some background and some more information on how these decisions were made and what it looks like moving forward. So Randy Holman.
Thank you, Bethany. And I sure have enjoyed everything you guys have done so far this morning. And, you know, it's just good to be able to kind of move on with this process. Just a little bit of what Bethany was saying. We started in October talking about how we were going to go about this, what we should do. Eventually, we came up with, and again, thanks to Ryan for all he does as far as getting a lot of this information out, but a survey was sent to schools trying to figure out how they wanted to proceed. Did we want to go with the 2019 numbers? Did we want an average 19 and 20? Or did we want to go with October 20 numbers and proceed into the 23-25 school year? Ultimately, the membership decided on the 2019 numbers, as they were probably at least somewhat close to what our previous numbers were. So that's where we moved to. And ultimately, we're at that point right now that the numbers that were used were sent to the membership, where schools then made the declaration of what sports they were going to play and so on. So on January the 11th, which, just a couple of weeks ago, the commissioners started taking a look at these numbers, the schools that were in the sports that they actually are ahead of or that they run, and placing schools into certain classifications. So because we're still looking for equity and trying to participation and doing those types of things. And that's where we're at now. And I know you're going to be getting those classification or where you are at as a school district here at the end of the day or at the end of this particular virtual meeting that we're having. So that's where we're at. And then I'll talk a little bit more about where we're going to go. But I did mention that the commissioners, they set the classifications. It's just, again, based upon numbers. And then they're presented here in the odd number year, so 21 being an odd number year. And then 1500.2. Now, this is where schools are going to have the opportunity. And if you look in your bylaw handbooks, page 42 kind of outlines several of the things that the criteria that's taken into consideration, not only by the commissioners, but if you get to this process and you get your classification and you feel that some of the criteria, it doesn't fit, and I think Ryan's got that on the screen right now, we will use 1500.21 when schools make their appeals. Now, an important date for you guys out there that plan on appealing or even considering those types of things have to be in by, I believe it's February the 12th. Is that right, Bethany? I'm pretty sure it's February the 12th.
Correct. Mm-hmm.
So on February 12th, those need to be submitted no later than February 12th. And if for some reason that doesn't happen, there still is another chance at the Legislative Council meeting in May. But we would hope that you would take enough time to take a look at the criteria that you're going to present to this committee and have it taken care of. Now, I know Bethany has created a survey or an appeals form that you'll be able to look at and put that information on. So when the clock committee looks it over, all this information on 1500.21, you can address those types of things. We're interested in what you put down on these bulleted items, not what your schedule is, not the fact that you're in this particular league and so on. It's how it's going to affect you or your school, your participation in your programs. So keep that in mind on 1500.21. Then as we move a little bit further on, and remember on your declaration form, you're going to put where you would rather be placed. If you're not happy with, let's say 4A, you feel like you need to be placed down, the criteria will be looked at. But in order to change the declaration after the designated deadline, the school, and this is on 1500.25, paragraph 2, school shall appear at the February meeting. That'll be on February the 19th, and we'll set those up by schools, and you will appeal all sports at one time that you plan on changing or asking for or an appeal on. We won't do it like we did 2 years ago when we did sport by sport. So keep in mind, it'll be a school declaration, how they want a school appeal, based upon those sports that you're deciding on. So that's on February the 19th. And beyond that, I think that's primarily what I needed to say. And if there's any questions at this time, you can address me or Bethany, but I believe we're in pretty good shape after that. And I think everybody's done a great job. So we appreciate that.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Randy. I just wanted to just say briefly that each assistant commissioner is going to come on and talk about their philosophy when using bylaw 1500.21 to set the classification enrollments for each of their sports. And so we're going to go just person by person. Also, as Randy mentioned, the entire list of sports and where you have been classified will be on our website concluding this meeting. And Ryan has done a tremendous job. So you literally will be able to pull down your school and you'll be able to see where you are classified in every single sport that you designated to being offered. So at this time, Ryan, do you have anything else to add, or are we turning it over to Adam?
Yeah, just really quick. Just want to emphasize that on 1500.21, all criteria were taken into account. It wasn't just, free and reduced was more important than participation rate. They were all taken into account as part of a larger picture. Yeah, again, school-specific information after the meeting, and the appeals form is linked from that school-specific information page. So it'll be easy to find that, and we will also send that out, I'm sure, many times between now and the appeals process.
All right, so turning it over to Adam.
All right, thanks, Bethany. So I'll start off with football. First thing I'd like to do is just thank the members of our committee that put in the work here. One of the things we were tasked with coming out of that committee meeting was balancing out our numbers and our classifications, and in doing that was also adding another classification of 11-man football. So in looking at doing that, where we find our issues in football is there's an equity piece between the top and the bottom of a classification. This is not something that's new. It's something that's been addressed already, a couple of different versions of it with creating certain types of leagues and certain classifications to put like schools together. What that actually ends up doing is creating another ecosystem for those leagues, and it changes the balance of the rest of the structure of that classification. So looking at doing something different there and trying to create equity amongst our classifications. When you look at our numbers, we've had classes of 42 roughly. What we proposed and what we're working at is to create classes of 36. With the numbers we have and a couple of new schools coming on, the number of 36 gets us to 7 classes of 36. So that would be 1A through 6A and 11-man. Also 8-man would be 36. And then your 6-man group would be 34 with existing co-ops. As of right now, a couple of those co-ops I've heard may actually dissolve, so we could be at 36 in the 6-man group as well. Looking at the 1500.21, all of those bullet points were used that are listed there. So it wasn't just based on enrollments. We also used 3 to 4 years worth of data for RPI, max preps, and Packard rankings. So when we look at your competitive success rate, it wasn't simply looking at your wins and losses, but also taking into account how those are weighted in those various ranking systems. So we can go through and actually look at comparing wins and losses more accurately as opposed to simply just taking your overall winning percentage. So with doing that, we were able to figure out, we got your classes of 36 and then one class of 34 is where we ended up with football. Again, looking at some teams that were in a higher classification that have the high number of free and reduced, and they have a low success rate and things like that, as opposed to creating a new league for them, they were placed down a classification. Others were placed up to get to those numbers. Moving on to wrestling, what we did with wrestling is we balanced out the classes a little bit. Enrollment, geography, participation were all used there, as well as using the resource of track wrestling. We could go through and look at regional points over the last 3 or 4 years, also roster sizes. So when we had somebody that was on the bubble of being up or down, we had more data we could dive into to really get a good look at how many kids they've had on their team that have been participating, as well as any type of success factor they've had there. And then thirdly, my other sport I have is girls lacrosse. We set up 4A and 5A in leagues last year. No one's played a game really in those yet, so we're not making changes to that structure. We're going to let that play out. If it was the right structure that multiple schools were involved in creating a year ago, we're not going to make any changes there. We're going to roll forward with that, and that'll be shown in the system that'll be there online that Ryan's got for you. So there's the 3 sports I've got for you. Bethany, I'll turn it back to you, I guess.
Okay, great. Turning it over to Bert. You got to unmute yourself, please, Bert. Thanks.
I was actually going to unmute myself and then pretend to be talking, but it didn't work very well. Good morning. 2 years ago, I stood, I'm sorry, let me get started again. My general philosophy and the general philosophy of when we worked on our, on the classifications in the sports that I have, we looked at some ranges, we looked at some, all of the aspects of 1500.21, particularly with those schools that requested things. We looked at some general knowledge of those sports over the years, some competitive history as well. And as Adam said, we really did try to look at the large picture of the sport in general. And so I'm going to start with, actually start with basketball. 2 years ago, I stood in front of the membership to present the classifications for this current cycle. And at that time, I told you I believe basketball needed to go to 6 classifications as the membership is growing rapidly, and the need for balance in that sport really exists. But I had not collected the necessary background information to make that recommendation then. I am making that recommendation now. 6 classifications create greater equity between the smaller and larger schools in each classification. It lessens the enrollment spread in each class and bringing those numbers closer together. And with 6 classes, we found that we were able to be more appropriately place the schools where they belong, whether that was up or down, based on the bullet points reviewed by Randy earlier. 6 classifications help all schools by keeping those enrollment ratios lower and creating more postseason opportunities for the schools who may believe playoffs have been out of reach for their teams. 6 classifications should not be a major disruption to the current league climate, where 2/3 or more of our leagues are now multi-classification leagues. As you can see on the screen, the breakdown and the average, the number of schools in each classification are pretty well balanced. And just remember that under a 5-class system, each of those classifications is somewhere between 68 to 75 schools. So this does create a little bit more equity for our schools. 6 classifications gives additional flexibility for the basketball committee to establish the playoff formats next year at its September meeting. Districts and regionals for those classes that have them will be more competitive. The classes without districts will see better competition throughout the bracket, including earlier round games. So to establish the 6 classification recommendation, I did survey the membership in August, simply asking if the change was needed. The responses indicate overwhelmingly that change is necessary and wanted. In the classes 1A, 2A, and 3A, 65.5% said a sixth class was needed. In 4A and 5A, 66.5% responded that an additional classification of basketball is warranted. The CHSAA Basketball Committee reviewed the concept of 6 basketball classes and voted unanimously for me to bring this proposal to the membership. And then finally, on a side note, and one that did not play into the decision for 6 classifications, because that decision was made 2 years ago as we started to look towards the upcoming cycle, but it relates to the economic recovery for schools in CHSAA. The state basketball playoffs are the single greatest sports revenue producer for CHSAA. An additional class only adds additional attendance in the postseason and thus adds economic gain for schools and the association office. Colorado basketball will be better for having 6 classifications. I'm going to move on to the baseball classes. We're going to have a chance, just like with lacrosse, we're going to have a chance to see what the current cycle classifications do for baseball in season D. I'm recommending a similar breakdown of schools for baseball in the next cycle, and the numbers are going to be similar in each classification to what we have now. We maintain the sizes of classes in 4A and 5A and then redistributed slightly the 3A, 2A, 1A schools to help bolster 1A. And again, any playoff formats will be addressed by the baseball committee at their next meeting. In softball, that's an interesting sport in that there is a significant divide between the elite schools and those schools that are not elite. For the next cycle, we looked at the factors and moved a number of schools into a classification we believe will provide them with greater opportunities for success. We placed 16 schools down into the 3A classification and 7 into 4A to achieve this. There are now, as you can see, a little better balance to the number of schools in each classification, which allows the 32-team format that softball has created to move forward without adjustment. And finally, gymnastics. This sport only has 32 teams, and based on competitive balance, it can be split reasonably into the classes of 15 and 17, reflecting no changes from the current cycle. And I don't anticipate any changes in the postseason. Bethany?
Okay, thanks. We did have one question, Bert, from Steve Shelton. He asked, did you discuss a smaller number of schools in 6A? The spread between schools with 50 school kids trying to compete with those over 3,000 is not equitable. Did you consider a smaller 6A?
We did, but we also wanted to make sure that we were fair to the class 1A, class 2A, class 3A schools as well, because some of that discrepancy in enrollment, while it seems extraordinarily large sometimes in the 6A piece, is also, those numbers are really no different, and the discrepancy is no different when you're talking about a school of 35 playing a school of 97 in some cases. So we decided that looking at a balance of as close as we could, balance those schools in each classification to start with, and then we know those numbers will be adjusted through the appeals process.
Okay, awesome. I'll now go into my sports. First, I wanted to thank my committee chairs for tennis and volleyball. Thank you guys so much for assisting me with this, for allowing me to bounce ideas, questions, thoughts. I really appreciate Chris Roberts and Matt Heckel for your help with this. For tennis in particular, and really for all of my sports, I guess, my philosophy started with trying to balance the number of schools and classifications, and ultimately coming up with conflicts, as I'll address in volleyball. But I was able to fairly get teams into classifications for tennis, but just not volleyball. With that being said, it was a pretty methodical approach that we took with regards to schools that had declared to play up, and then an in-depth look at schools that had requested to play down. And so I looked really hard at participation numbers, free and reduced lunch, and then also the competitive history over about the last 4 years. Volleyball is another situation where we haven't played a match since we reclassified last time. And so there were those internal struggles as well. With that being said, here are the breaks for tennis, boys tennis. Obviously skiing is one class, and then girls tennis. So fairly even amongst the classifications. With regards to girls volleyball, I started wrestling with a lot of the issues that Bert mentioned earlier. And so in a conversation with Matt Heckel and the other gentleman that we had on the call, we really feel that over the next 2 years, we as a volleyball committee are going to explore what 6 classifications will look like for girls volleyball. At this time, we have not done our homework or research to see what that may look like for volleyball, but we do want to explore that. As you can see, our 5A classification is significantly and has been significantly smaller than our 4A, 3A, 2A, and 1A classifications have in the past. And just honestly, schools on the bubble between 4A and 5A, they want to play 4A. And at a certain point, we have to fill for some sort of equitable balance, some schools into 5A so that those numbers aren't entirely skewed. So we did the best that we could by looking and taking into all of those factors that I listed before. So with that being said, I will now turn it over to Justin.
Thanks, Bethany. So, I go back to something that Rhonda said. I can't remember if it was today or in our meeting yesterday, but she talked about consistency. And I can tell you that I put a tremendous amount of effort into every decision I made on classification placement in the sports that I oversee, which are boys and girls soccer, boys and girls swim and dive, ice hockey, field hockey, and lacrosse, in an effort to be consistent and to play schools, in the best possible situation based on the given parameters to be successful. And so I started with putting classifications together that were similar in size, knowing that with there being more schools, in the 3A, 4A range, that those classifications would typically be larger than your 5A, 2A classes, and then move schools into a position when appropriate, where they would be able to have some measure of success. And so I've reached out to each and every one of you individually for each sport, either via text, email, or phone, that was placed into a different classification than the one you requested, just to share my thoughts and really to hear yours. So there isn't much more that I'm going to need to say here, other than there should be no surprises for anyone on their classification placement. And if you did not receive a note from me, then you were placed in the classification that you requested. So please feel free, once you guys do get a chance to take a look at the classification placement when Ryan sends you an email this afternoon, to reach out over the next few days if you have follow-up questions. And I'd be happy to talk through anything with you guys. So with that being said, I'm going to let Jen go and discuss the sports that she oversees.
Jen, you're muted.
I wanted to be like Bert. And Ryan's going to flip that over, I think. There we go. So looking at cross-country, spirit, track, and unified bowling. Unified bowling is going to come in as just one class. Currently, we're showing 38, which we think that's a little bit low. So again, reach out if you haven't, did not turn in that you are going to have unified bowling, because our numbers were definitely higher last year regarding that. So looking at Spirit's always kind of followed in line with their with basketball numbers. And so we did start with what Bert broke down for a 5 classification basketball. And obviously we're always in a 4 classification. So it works out really nicely with the 2A, 1A combination. But with this, we've had a lot of talk over the past year and a half of what Spirit really should look like. And they really should follow suit as every other kind of sport in this realm. So after this year, we will not use any sort of basketball classification to start our numbers. They'll probably come out somewhat similar, but there are some variances. But this year, you're allowed to look at this if you really feel that, you know, your Spirit team really needs to look at a different classification. I did not go ahead and make those moves down based on success in those types of things, because we are at this point still following those basketball numbers, but you do have the option to go ahead and do a appeal, if you will. So we'll talk through that. If you have questions and you really want Spirit to look different, give me a call and we'll talk through that. We can look at what that appeal process looks like. When we look at cross country, and there is definitely a typo there, Ryan, with cross country from 2A to 3A. So we'll just have to fix that. I think there's a lot of questions coming through. But you'll see kind of the breakdown for cross country and track is very similar with schools. And so same kind of as everybody's talked about, free and reduced launch participation, success factors, those types of things. We did see quite a few people that just said declining enrollment, and that wasn't enough based on if all those other criteria didn't meet. So again, I do anticipate some questions based on where we kind of put for cross country and track, but I think for the most part, there won't be major surprises there either. And I know Ryan just took us off the screen to correct that number, but you'll see that come out from him later today with those accurate numbers. And other than that, I think we're good.
Okay, Tom, you're next.
And real quick, did want to clarify the top of 2A cross country is 327. Just had some numbers reversed.
Yep. Thanks, Ryan.
Tom, you're muted.
You would think we would get that done. Sorry. Just a little bit of history. When we were first charged, when commissioners were first charged with creating splits for their sports, I think we all were pretty excited about that, and we would just simply take the number of schools and divide by the number of classifications and come up with equal numbers. But over time, we've been able to actually have a better understanding of our schools and really how they compete. And so for this iteration of split off, it really is that my philosophy has changed, and it's really about simply competitive equity. And it's really about making sure that schools are in a classification, one that they feel like they should be in and one that they can compete in. So with that comment, I think it's just important to know that there were 8 schools that were moved down from 5A to 4A, and those 8 schools really hit free and reduced lunch and participation numbers in a way that they could be moved so that's compatible. But more importantly, it's probably even going to be difficult for them to even compete in 4A. So it just seemed like an automatic way to move them down. And if they're comfortable with being down, I think maybe that, I don't know, might have some effect on how they compete. So with that, I think you can see the numbers, smaller numbers in 5A, larger numbers in 4A and 3A. In 3A, there was quite a few new schools that are picking up golf, and so that's why that number is a little bit larger in 3A. And then girls golf is always lesser numbers of schools playing. So that's it, Bethany, for me.
Okay, great. So again, all of this information is going to be posted at the conclusion of this meeting. And we're going to go into Jen with the corporate update. Dairy Max. Jen? Ryan, how about you jump ahead and give us your esports pilot update, please?
Sorry, I'm right here.
Oh, okay, great. Thanks, Jen.
Sorry about that. So it's with an honor to always reach out and be able to share our corporate partners. And Sarah Rose and Jacqueline from Dairy Max's really gets into the community piece and really is able to push out ideas and education-based stuff. And so I'd like to turn it over to Sarah Rose at this time. Ryan, do you see her logged on?
I don't, Jen. No, sorry. I was just trying to find her and I don't see her.
Okay. They may have had to push out. They had another meeting too, but we'll just connect with them later when we see them jump on.
Okay.
All right, Ryan, why don't you jump into esports, please?
Sure. I'm happy to do it. Esports is in its second year of its pilot season. It has started the process of meeting with committees now and going through the process to try and seek sanctioning. If it's approved, it would start in 2022. As you know, we have 2 games already, League of Legends and Rocket League. League of Legends kind of like a capture the flag game, and Rocket League is soccer with a car, essentially. Waivers announced 2 new games, FIFA and Madden, which is just NFL football, and then rest of the world football, so soccer, which are much more widespread and popular among your general student populations. So that will provide great opportunities for those students. So that we're just going through the process of seeking sanctioning. Esports is, and we'll continue to meet with committees, and if approved every step along the way there, would potentially come up for a vote at Legislative Council later this spring.
Okay, awesome. Thank you, Ryan. We're going to keep going with our agenda, and I'm going to start sharing my screen, and Mike Hawks, our board of director member, has done quite a bit of work on this first bylaw. So I'm going to turn it over to Mike to talk about our first proposal here.
Thanks, Bethany. This one, like Bethany said, comes from the board of directors and was discussed at the handbook committee meeting this year. And so we are proposing that we add one more board position to the board. And the reason for this is kind of twofold. So the first reason is that the association has grown substantially, and so adding another representative to the board kind of fits along with that growth within the association. And secondly, we have some disparity amongst the different board districts with the numbers of leagues that they represent. So for example, District 3 originally, or before this proposal, has 7 different leagues in it, meaning that an athletic director would need to wait 28 years potentially before they would be eligible to run for one of the board positions and serve on the CHSAA board. So this proposal, we went through and we tried to do this by creating as little change as possible and still accomplish our goals. So what we did was we moved 4 leagues out of District 3, created a new district, which we're calling District 10, and populated it with 3 of those 4 leagues from District 3. The 4th league, the Mile High League, would move into District 6 along with the Continental, the Front Range, and the 5280. And then a shift to reduce District 7 from a 5-league district and make it a 4-league district, shifting the West Central League from District 7 to District 9, which grows them from a 3-league district to a 4-league district. So again, really focusing on adding one more board representative I think more voices are always kind of appreciated, and looking to balance the numbers of leagues that are represented by each of those different districts. So I guess when we were putting this together, the one drawback that we found was that both District 6 and 9 would add one more league to their districts, which would change their rotation. But I'm hoping that that's not a stalling point for this change to go through, as I see the rest of it being pretty positive.
Okay, that's awesome. Thank you so much, Mike. Does anyone have any specific questions for him before we go on? Ryan, could you look at the chat? I can't see it.
I don't see anything popping up.
Okay. So the next one we're going to talk about is, I'm a little fast here. I'm going to turn it over to Jen.
Awesome. Thanks.
And let me just find
We're getting there.
There we go.
Perfect. So this one, there's a lot of conversation that happened with the handbook committee when they met with the board of directors, and really it was around the qualifications for a board of director and what that communication protocol should look like. So kind of two different topics that were talked about there. And after much discussion, the board will not be moving forward on kind of the eligibility, the specifics of the eligible person to take on the board, but they are going to be they are moving forward in support of moving or just having some better clarification and communication within those regular scheduled meetings. And so it's really important that each board member will represent a district as they have, and they will try to have a meeting to be a little bit more inclusive in that communication. And so they want to schedule those regularly and look for kind of filling that gap of the communication that's kind of been out there. And so really you can see the rationales, pros and cons there. And I think the discussion regarding kind of the qualifications or that type of thing will continue. So at this point, we're just moving forward the communication piece and having meetings.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Jen. Slow me down if you guys see any questions. The next one I'll talk about, ADM 1 talks about restricted varsity eligibility, and this really came into play this particular year with regards to the new bylaw that we passed last year, granting restricted varsity eligibility during the regular season only, and the conflict of our athletic transfer bylaws. And so what this does is that it emphasizes that an athletically motivated transfer should not be eligible for varsity competition ever, even at a, so it just adds additional language that says that any transfer deemed to be motivated by athletic reasons, as defined by bylaw 1800.4, will not be eligible for restricted varsity eligibility. So even if you're a senior and you transfer, but it's for athletic reasons, you will not be eligible for that restricted varsity eligibility. And Rhonda, go ahead and jump in with any of your additional thoughts with that.
No, I'm good, Bethany. Sorry about that. Everything you said was spot on. So it just really came around to making sure that it supported other bylaws, and it's been an excellent bylaw to apply to many transfers, especially during COVID. But we want to make sure that anything that has athletic motivation does not reward a student for their transfer. So you were spot on.
Awesome, thank you. Okay, the next bylaw proposal, I'll turn it over to Tom to talk about officials' pay during scrimmages. All right, you're muted again, Tom.
So you can see how it reads there, right? A scrimmage just talks about a scrimmage date, but it talks about the fact that officials will be paid for scrimmages. That's the
Did we just lose Tom?
Does look like he dropped out.
Okay, so I'll just jump in. Justin, actually, why don't I just turn this over to you and you can talk about this one and the next one maybe, and Tom can jump in.
Yeah, sorry. So yeah, this is just simply taking out from the, I think it's 2320.10, it's just no officials may be paid for scrimmages. And then I know that Tom is working very diligently with the officials fees committee on what the structure of that will actually look like when we're talking about pay for officials. So this just takes out the wording that officials may not be paid. And then Tom and his group will then kind of just go to the drawing board and get back to you guys on what exactly that's going to look like as far as pay structure for scrimmages. So.
Awesome. Okay, thank you. And certainly we can add Tom back in when he gets back on. But
yeah, I'm sure Tom will have more to add on that. But I know just talking with him yesterday, that they're on top of that for sure with getting that structure together. I know there were some questions around that the last time we spoke. The next one is just the additional foundation game. Again, just simple change to, I think it's 2320.4 to read that any school may schedule 2 foundation games per sport per level as opposed to just 1. Listen, we all know that schools have lost gate revenue to the COVID-19 pandemic. And just by simply adding 1 additional foundation game, it allows schools that are interested in opportunity for an additional game that would include revenue, possibly a home and away with a rival where each can achieve a gate. So again, not something that everyone would take advantage of, but those that are interested could. And just a simple change from 1 to 2 in that bylaw there, Bethany.
okay, awesome. And then I did see that Tom jumped back on. Tom, what else would you like to
Yeah,
add?
sorry.
No problem.
Yeah, I would just like to add this, that this really did not come from the official's perspective, although it will be and can be a great tool for retention, because we get a lot of pushback from officials that ask us why they don't get paid for scrimmages. It has always been one where it was an educational opportunity, and that's the way it was always set up. But it became more and more a topic of discussion with officials that they did not think it was fair, and that's not bad for them to say. It's just the way it was for a long time. It's still happening in New Mexico, but they add some things with it in New Mexico that forces the officials to actually comply, and we just didn't want to create that kind of message. I was not at the handbook committee when this came through, so maybe Justin, was there any other conversation around why folks at that committee wanted to pay officials for scrimmages?
Yeah, I think, Tom, I just remember one, I think it was maybe Nate Smith that may have brought it up, that, said, listen, I've got a hard enough time convincing officials to work my games when I'm paying them, let alone when they have to come for free. And so I think there was just some concerns around, maybe officials cherry picking some of the haves as opposed to the have-nots when deciding on when they would decide to work a scrimmage, because they're going to be working it for no fee. Some schools were enticing officials maybe with barbecue, or I heard in Pueblo, maybe some green chili down there. And so I think the schools that just weren't able to do that said, listen, let's just level the playing field. Let's allow the officials fee committee to go out there, put together a structure that's fair and doesn't put us out financially for the membership, but to be able to pay officials and hopefully get officials working all of our scrimmages and not just the ones that they feel are most beneficial to them and perhaps their appetite.
Yeah, so I think that's helpful for a little background. And so I think it's a good idea, and the officials certainly would welcome it. Just to maybe move ahead, because this is a part of the officials fees report, and it's really the only item that is going to be new in the officials fees report. I'll talk about some other things when we get to that report, but currently what we propose is that the fee for scrimmages will be half of the posted fee in the officials fees report for that particular sport, half the fee, and that the schools participating will share in the cost. So it's as simple as that, and it's probably not a huge burden financially, a huge impact. But anyway, that's the proposed wording and the way we think is best to go around it. Schools still will be able to maybe entice officials to come by just how the extra things that they do for them, like a green chili dinner or something. Thanks.
Okay, that
I
sounds
just
great.
did it.
I certainly would work for a green chili dinner. With that being said, I'm going to stop sharing my screen and I'm going to turn it back over to Jen and corporate.
Awesome. Thank you so much. We do have Dairy Max. Thank you guys for joining us a little bit early. We're ahead of the game today, so we didn't want to miss out on your opportunity to share with the group. Dairy Max has been a great partner, obviously, for us for several years. They have a lot of awards that they participate with us in, as well as the educational pieces that they share out, and all of the community-based stuff that they do. And so we truly appreciate this ongoing support. And obviously, if you've seen the chocolate milk giveaways at most of our state events, that's coming from this crew here. So at this time, I'd like to turn it over to Sarah Rose, and I think Ryan's going to share her screen to share some information and updates from them.
And Sarah, you should have permission to share your screen, so you can go ahead and share from your machine.
All right, are you guys seeing the full PowerPoint or notes too?
Just the PowerPoint, no notes.
Okay, awesome. Just making sure I have the right screen there. All right, so thank you and good morning, everyone. My name is Sarah Rose Foreman, and as a past athlete myself, a coach and a registered dietitian and school wellness consultant with Dairy Max, I know and understand the importance of an athlete's training, performance, and overall health. And I'm here today to discuss a few ways we can influence and enhance the health, performance, and training of your athletes. So we all know that there are many factors that can affect an athlete's performance. However, two of the most basic factors are training and nutrition. An athlete can train hard to excel in performance, but if adequate nutrition isn't present, they are undermining their training and all of their hard work, and all of your hard work too. So this is where Dairy Max's Champions Are Built program comes into play by supporting you in fueling your athletes for success. It is no secret, training and resistance exercise plays a critical role on the athlete's performance, strength, injury prevention, and again, their overall health. However, in order to train day in and day out, it is important an athlete and their training program is mindful of the role nutrition plays in the process. In order to improve the response to training, post-exercise nutrition is key in the athlete's overall success. Evidence-based nutrition continues to show us the importance of post-exercise nutrition and the positive impact it has in the recovery process. And within those studies, chocolate milk is often represented due to its nutrient-dense profile. For instance, the added carbohydrates from the sugar in chocolate milk is in fact a good thing. It helps provide a fast-acting recovery by replenishing the muscle glycogen stores, in turn replenishing their energy bank, which better prepares your athletes for the next day's practice and their ability to continue to train and push hard day in and day out. Chocolate milk is also a great source of high quality protein. When we work out with high intensity, the training triggers an increase in our hormone cortisol. The rise in cortisol breaks down muscle protein, specifically the strength and power fibers, for energy, which is why replenishing with carbohydrates and protein is a good thing. The carbohydrates helps reduce the rise in cortisol, which then allows the protein to be used solely for muscle repair. And lastly, chocolate milk aids in rehydrating our body because it's 90% water and it's full of electrolytes. So many of the studies in science around post-exercise nutrition has mainly been focused on adults and mostly endurance-based training. However, until most recently, back in 2019, a study out of the University of Texas was published examining the effects of post-exercise nutrition on an adolescent athlete's strength, which was measured by evaluating the bench press and their squat, while refueling with either chocolate milk or a carbohydrate beverage. So this study included 103 participants, high school male and females, recruited from a 7-day summer strength and speed camp. The protocol lasted 7 weeks, including a baseline testing during week 1. They had 5 weeks of training and then a post-testing during week 7. The post-workout researchers gave one group of students chocolate milk, which included carbohydrates and protein, and then they gave the other group just a carbohydrate beverage, which is our normal sports drink. At the end of the trial period, the two groups showed a significant difference in two main areas, which was the bench press and the squat. Student athletes who recovered with chocolate milk experienced a 7% increase in the weight that they could lift compared to those athletes that were just refueling with a sports drink. The same group also showed a 3.5% increase in bench press and 15% increase in squat when those students were fueled with chocolate milk. So yes, both chocolate milk and the typical sports drink contain carbohydrates, which replenish the body and combine electrolytes and fluid to rehydrate. However, the difference is the typical sports drink lacks protein to rebuild and repair those muscles. Milk naturally contains two types of high quality protein, whey and casein. Whey is absorbed quickly and casein is absorbed slowly, meaning our body reaps both benefits of short and long term. There's also 1 gram of protein in every ounce of milk, which in combination with the carbohydrate provides that ideal muscle protein ratio, carbohydrate to protein. The combined factors of chocolate milk's nutrient profile promote the drink as an excellent post-exercise supplement for replenishing muscle glycogen, building muscle, and reestablishing a positive fluid balance. Additionally, chocolate milk provides a low-cost, readily available option when compared to other supplements, and athletes love the taste. So most importantly, 6 out of 10 boys and 8 out of 10 girls do not meet the recommended intake of milk, and refueling with chocolate milk can help fill that gap. In addition to student athletes not meeting their recommended intake of milk, they are also not meeting many of their nutrient needs, including vitamin D, calcium, and potassium. When looking at diet quality, our athletes have an increased need for vitamins and minerals due to the stress and exercise that one can place on the body. Having an accessible, enjoyable source of nutrients should be a top priority for them, and dairy helps fill that need. 1 8-ounce serving of milk contains over 9 different essential nutrients, including vitamin A, which promotes good vision, healthy skin, and a healthy immune system, which is very important right now. Phosphorus, calcium, and vitamin D, which all play a role in building and maintaining strong bones and teeth. Potassium, which promotes normal blood pressure and again helps regulate that fluid balance. And riboflavin, which is needed to help convert food into energy and also plays a crucial role in the development and maintenance of their central nervous system. So as you can see, the nutrients found in an 8-ounce glass of milk packs a powerful punch, and it is hard to match. For example, you would need to eat 10 cups of spinach to match the calcium in milk. That's a lot. So how can we get this great source of nutrition into the hands of our students? There are a few different options to consider. One is working with Dairy Max and our Champions Are Built program. And 2 is through a partnership with your district's food and nutrition department, where the child nutrition director will most likely be your point of contact to discuss the availability and the opportunity of these 2 programs, the National School Breakfast Program and the After School Snack Program, which can be viable options for your student athletes. Say if your athletes are participating in morning workouts, or whether that's lifting or just a practice in the morning, participation in the breakfast program will not only provide the nutrition from chocolate milk, it can also offer additional benefits by refueling the students with a well-balanced meal, further supplying them with adequate carbohydrates, proteins, and nutrient-rich fruits and vegetables to not only replenish their energy stores from practice, but also to set them up for success for the school day ahead. The other option to discuss is participating in the after-school snack program. Many schools already offer enrichment programs after school, and in doing so, you're able to provide a snack to students. The after-school snack program is a great opportunity not only to provide chocolate milk, but can also provide another snack option as well to fully support the needs and demands of practice. So collaboration and partnership with your child nutrition department and team is a great opportunity to provide adequate nutrition to your student athletes. So thank you for your time today. For more information regarding our BUILT program, you can visit our webpage here. There you will find the University of Texas's study. You'll find some other cool videos and resources. And then if you have any additional questions regarding any of these programs, the special or the after school snack program and the school breakfast program, you can reach out to myself or my colleague, Melissa Brunk.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Sarah Rose. Thank you, Dairy Max. Again, I know this is a program they've been pushing out for a few years, or again, maybe exploding it a little bit. And it's definitely been picked up by some schools, and we're very excited to see where this can go. And thank you for your partnership. Obviously, we can't do this without our partners. So appreciate all of you. Thanks so much, Jacqueline. Thanks, Sarah Rose.
And just, Jen, while we're on, there was a question actually for Sarah Rose. So before you leave, can you share with us your expertise of what % fat is optimal in chocolate milk? Schools often have 1%, but is 2% or whole milk better?
Yeah, so there's some interesting research that's come out around fat percent and the difference in how it pertains to our athletic performance. And really it comes down to preference. Really the higher fat content can help with the caloric intake that a lot of our athletes need to meet. So, oftentimes when I work with athletes, I actually kind of stay away from fat-free, but if that's the only option that's available, then obviously any nutrition is better than none. But sometimes for those athletes that are really going hard and need some more caloric intake or caloric density, the higher fat content is actually beneficial for them.
Awesome. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
All right. At this time, we're going to go into committee reports. Ryan will get those back on the screen. And Tom, you are our first one up with officials fees.
Okay, so I talked earlier about what's going to be added to the officials fees report, and I'll repeat that again. It's really, half the posted rate for that particular sport, and the participating schools will all share in the cost. What I'd like to also emphasize is that we're in a 10-year period. We got 9 more years on a COLA increase for officiating fees for officials, and I just want to make sure that everybody remains aware of that. So that's just the addition to recommendations and new items for officials fees.
Okay, thank you, Tom. Bert for baseball and then basketball.
When we're looking at these sports, remember that all these playoff formats reflect the changes that were approved by the Legislative Council in May of 2020. So the 2A playoff format has no districts, and 2As may now schedule 23 regular season games. That is next season. That is not this season, because season D, we won't have room for that. Established the format for determining regional hosts in 3A, established how 4A teams will qualify to the regional bracket, revised the 3A, 4A, 5A seeding process, established the minimum games that need to be played for playoff qualifications. Our major informational item is that we did change the run rule to 10 runs after 5, 15 runs after 4, and 20 runs after 3 innings, beginning with the 2021 season, which is this season, Season D. This is really a safety rule change because of our pitch count rule and the wear and tear that go on to pitchers' arms.
Okay, basketball, Bert.
Again, these are just reflective of a normal season with the format changes that were approved by the Legislative Council last May. We established 1A districts regional format and changed their seating format, established the 2A districts, changing numbers of regional qualifiers, established the new 4A seating criteria, the new 5A seating criteria, and then the committee unanimously approved the staff recommendation for clock to move to a 6 classification system for basketball for the 2022-2024 competitive cycle.
Okay, great. Moving on to Jen with cross country.
Thank you. No major changes for cross country. 2 informational items. Obviously, we're still at North Penrose until 2023, so that kind of fell over from last year. And then we do continue to have conversations at the cross country committee of where we are with 1A as a state and kind of coming off on their own classification. And so there was some feedback to kind of collect some data over this next cycle and then come back to the committee and see if we're ready to make that move. So that's another informational item, but that's it for cross country.
Okay, awesome. Tom, and golf, please.
Yeah, golf, just that one bullet is important. That's the major change. So you can read it there and hope you can understand it. It's just the best 6 of 18 hole rounds, and that's how you get a ranking. It will allow teams that have a number of different or maybe larger than normal size teams to be able to play as many of those players in varsity events, and their IWR will not be decreased.
Okay, that sounds good. Thank you. Bert, we're back to you for gymnastics and then softball.
Gymnastics, we had no major changes, so we will be running our program the same as normal next fall as we get into what we hope is a normal gymnastics season. In softball, we adjusted the classifications with new enrollment numbers, and remember, all of this would have pertained to last fall, but now is pertaining to next fall as we finish out the second year of a 2-year cycle. We established a 32-team format for all classifications and a new seeding process that takes into account data points that most of the other sports are using.
Okay, sounds good. I'll turn it over to tennis. The committee met in December. We're talking about the following year. There's no major changes at this time, but we are recommending that coaches create a UTR account so that all of the matches played will automatically filter from Max Preps into UTR, which is the Universal Tennis Rating. The committee is hoping to monitor the UTR for both individual and team ratings to see if this mechanism will be useful for seeding purposes in the future. And so more information will be forthcoming about that. But Max Preps and UTR do have a partnership, and so you will not have to duplicate entry for that information. And we will be recommending that for this coming spring season. And then moving for volleyball. Okay, sorry, never mind. Jen, track first, please, sorry.
Yep, so thanks, Bethany, no worries. We have no major changes and no informational items for track. Obviously, those are our future dates, with June 26th being our culminating event this year. That is it.
Okay, awesome. Moving on to volleyball, we just have a couple changes. We updated the selection process for regionals. And again, this will start, this information here is in the formal committee for next year, that we updated the selection process for regionals to use the CHSAA index, which is the combination of RPI, max clips, Freeman rankings, and coaches poll. And really the rationale is to utilize multiple factors for playoff selection and not just the CHSAA RPI. And then we also updated the boys volleyball playoff format. Unfortunately, due to COVID and just other financial considerations, schools are unable to offer boys volleyball this year and next year. And so we have reduced the number of teams advancing to regionals to just to a smaller bracket of 16 and then 8 to state.
And real quick, Bethany, Tom, there was a question on the I Wanamaker ranking for golf. The question is, can teams still qualify for the state tournament via regionals? Is that correct?
What's the question again, Ryan? They can qualify what?
They can still qualify for individual, or for members of their team for the state tournament via regionals. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, great. So just obviously all the committees have not yet met. You did not hear the full slate of committee reports, but when they do meet, we will be informing you guys and giving you an update of the major changes for all the committee reports. And that's going to be held at the CHSAA CADA virtual meeting on May 5th. So at that time, you will hear all of these reports again. So at this point, I'll turn it over back to the CHSAA update and financial forecast, Rhonda and Sarah.
All right, I'm going to do a quick introduction of Sarah. I think that we introduced her at the All School Summit, but what a blessing during this time period to have her expertise, her business sense, as well as some of the things that she's done on the outside with nonprofits to get us through the financial red flags or the financial storm that we're in since the discontinuation of our basketball tournament. And so short introduction, but it's nice to learn from her. And I think we all are, and our association is in a better place because of her expertise that she brings to the table. So what I've asked her to do is to provide you with an overview of what this will look like for the rest of the 2021 school year, the rest of the competitive season, what's going to be our best case scenario, and where we would be if we continue to have the limited capacity for our state tournaments, which 50% of our budget, if not higher, is set around ticket sales. So I'm going to turn it over to Sarah, and then I'll come back in to talk a little bit about some decisions made on our platform. So thank you, Sarah.
Hi, everyone. So yeah, we're going to talk some finances for CHSAA this year. So as Rhonda mentioned, 55% of our revenue usually comes from postseason events and ticket sales. So that is very different this year, which, you know, I know you all are going through as well. So, so we've had to revise our budget and really be prepared for what lies ahead this year. So we are looking at our updated budget, and we really looked at 3 scenarios. One is a worst case scenario where really there's no fans, and this is pretty exaggerated, but you know, made us be prepared for what could lie ahead. Our projections, which is where we hope to land, which means season C is still pretty limited, but hopefully as we get to season D, we'll have a little bit more capacity for fans. And then best case scenario is season C and D looking more normal and gaining some of that revenue that we have in years past. So I'm going to give an overview, you know, not get too far into the details, but so you get the picture of what we are going through. So income wise, our income is going to be down about 50% this year from where it normally is. Luckily, we have some diversity in revenue streams like our corporate and promotions that, you know, has held pretty strong this year. We're lucky to still be having those partnerships, maintaining that level. You know, some areas have gone down in revenue, like coaching registration is down. You know, platform, some of the revenue from those streams are decreasing. School fees is another area that provides some diversity in revenue, which is really important for us. It's about 20 to 25% of our revenue. And this year there's a little bit of an increase because music is a new participation fee, as well as some of the new sports like girls wrestling. Spirit was divided into two, and then boys volleyball as well. And then going down to activities, you'll see, you know, most of our activities are virtual this year. So we're not gaining that revenue because, you know, we're not charging as much for virtual events that are occurring within that realm. And then sports. So, you know, due to the capacity limitations, we're just not seeing that same revenue, basically big decreases all across the board there. So as I said, income's down about 50% this year. And then going down to expenses, you know, this is an area we can definitely control, we can limit, and, you know, do our best there. And going down to some administrative committee meeting expenses due to our remote work situation, no in-person meetings, we have saved a lot of costs there. We've also really looked internally, looking at all our vendors, everything we do at the office and whatnot, to see what areas we can cut out and save money there. You know, we haven't held like the All School Summit, for example, and, you know, this meeting is virtual. Some of our costs, you know, are still the same, like the electronic platforms, officials, we can't really cut in some of those areas. So, you know, we've just decreased where we can. You know, we did take a hard look at our staff, and we cut our cafeteria plan by 50%. So, you know, we've really taken a hard look at everything that we can do as an association. Going down to our activities and sports, you know, while we're not gaining that revenue and having these virtual events, we're also not incurring the same expenses. So that is also helping us. You know, we just had our first virtual music festival, and with it being virtual, for example, we saved a lot of cost on that. So sports wise, you know, some sports we can cut some costs, but in some cases it's really hard to put on these great high caliber events without cutting costs. So we're still going to be putting on great events, and this is an area where it is hard to cut out some of those expenses. So you'll see here that our net income, so this year, you know, we're projecting a loss of $350,000 to $1.1 million, but really hoping we're going to land closer to the $800,000 loss, you know, hoping for a better case scenario, depending on what happens with COVID and what lies ahead this year. So fortunately, CHSAA is going to get through this, and, you know, we're going to dip into our cash reserves and some investments to get through this. And, you know we're not the only organization financially struggling right now. And, you know, we've been around for 100 years and planning for 100 more. So we'll definitely get through it. So that's kind of an overview of finances for the year. I also just wanted to mention, since we are starting season B, those of you who have paid your participation fees season by season, just a reminder that those are due right now. And we would appreciate payment on that. So I'm going to hand it back over to Rhonda.
Sarah, can you give the membership a overview of the PPP? We just had our loan forgiven from this fall, and we are frontline for the bank.
Yes. I think Rhonda froze there. So we are, you know, looking for any additional funding that we can to get through this time. Our first PPP loan was forgiven, so that is very good news for us. We also applied for a second PPP loan that just came out in the past, you know, couple of weeks, which I'm sure you've heard about. So we applied for that. We're also looking at other funding through the state. and any additional grants or whatever we can do to create more funding there. And Rhonda is coming in to keep going. Technology.
Technology. It's me. Okay, I think our next bullet point is on I'm not doing the reimbursement, so I'm going right into the platform. Okay. So today is an opportunity to, a year ago, this meeting, the membership held me accountable to the electronic platform that we had introduced 3 years ago. And at first I became defensive, but I heard you and you said, take a look at what you're asking us to do. And I put together a subcommittee so that I could have an understanding of what the day-to-day for you, your assistants, regarding what we were asking you to do through the electronic platform. And so today I have the opportunity. We started our RFPs last in October. God, I'm breathing hard because I ran from my office. But the opportunity to just open up this space that is growing across the nation as state associations transition to technology. We were able to ask better questions and really look at the non-negotiables and what the Colorado High School Activities Association needed to move forward. And so today I get to announce that after 4 months of hard vetting and reaching out to other state associations, the Colorado High School Activities Association will be partnering with our school for the next 3 years in a partnership and relationship to elevate our electronic platform. And it speaks volumes today. The CEO from our school is going to be joining the membership and speaking a little bit about the company. But before he comes on, I want to introduce Brandon Carlucci, who after last year this time became the subcommittee platform and the voice for the membership to help CHSAA meet the needs of 363 schools that were working collaboratively to get waivers done, forms done, everything that we needed, coaches registration. So at this time, I'm going to introduce Brandon Carlucci. Brandon, thank you for everything, your leadership, your voice. I know that the association has been elevated through just your commitment to making sure that we're accountable to the membership. So thank you very much. Turn it over to Brandon.
Okay, you bet, Rhonda. Thank you. And I'd just like to reiterate a couple of things Rhonda said. Like she said, this process, it really went back a year ago after the roundtable in January of last year. And we said, you know what, it's time to take a look at the platform we have to try to make some adjustments to it and make it work better for us athletic directors. I think there was a lot of frustration. And so we sat down and we were very direct with exactly some of the things that needed to change. I met with I talked to the association in August at the summit. And at that time, a few things had changed. Hopefully a couple things saved us some time as athletic directors, and certainly some of the stuff and frustrations we've had for 3 years still exist. And you kind of overlay that with the fact that the contract was up and there was going to be an opportunity to listen and hear and court other people and see what other companies had to offer in this space. Obviously big teams being one of those, but other companies in the space as well. And so I know there are ADs listening right now around the state, some of which are saying, this is great, I'm ready to move on. I've been frustrated for 3 years. And there's other ADs saying, are you kidding me? This is not a good time to be making a change. I just want some stability. And here we go again. And I get that. And there's a lot of ADs in between those two places. But I will just say that I appreciate Rhonda inviting me into this process. Even though I was the chair of the subcommittee, that had more to do with us just trying to find some solutions to what was going on at the time and not so much looking into these companies. But she said, no, Brandon, I want you to sit in on this committee and be the voice of the schools, like she said, because UADs are the ones that are going to be wrestling with this daily. So when I get in the committee, I'm really looking at it from two angles. I want to know, how's this going to make my life easier as an AD, and how's this going to help me be more effective with my time and more efficient with my time. So I'll give you one example. One of the places we spend a lot of time as ADs is certifying coaches. And as we broke down and started talking to some of these companies and showing them exactly what we do as athletic directors to approve a coach, it became evident very, very quickly that it wasn't the best way to go about doing things. If you think through a coach, they take somewhere between 4, 5, 6, sometimes 7 courses or assessments. And so we go in, we click on their name. We've got to find, okay, there's the concussion. We've got to open up the concussion, scroll down, find the attachment, open up the attachment, take a look at the date, make sure it's legit, close that screen, scroll down to the bottom of another screen, hit approve and finalize. And that's one test for one coach. And we're going to repeat that process over and over and over again. As we looked at some of these companies, almost 3 of them were very similar in the fact that their testing kind of works like this. Let's say, for example, Leroy was on the screen a little bit. So if I've got a coach, Leroy Lopez, and he's coaching for me, and Leroy takes the CHSAA concussion test or the NFHS concussion test, I'm going to log in. I'm going to take a look, and I don't have to pull anything up on Leroy. Once I see that his concussion test is done, Leroy doesn't have to download his certificate and upload it back into the system. I don't have to check it. I'm just going to see under Leroy Lopez, his concussion test, done, complete, boom. And so I'm going to pull up a coach, and I'm looking for 4, 5, 6 green lights. I'm not opening things and throwing in dates, with the exception of maybe the CPR. So as I'm watching that, I'm going, wow, this is a real time saver. The other big bucket that I was paying attention to was transfers. Obviously, Rhonda was looking hard at transfers as well. And through that process and talking with these companies, it was clear very early and abundantly clear that I feel like there was a better way. And so, yes, even though change is tough, I think CHSAA made the right decision in this case. And I think they made the right decision for a couple of reasons. Number one, I think they went with the right company. When we finally broke it down after the official RFPs had come in, everybody in the room had as their top choice our school. And from there, choices 2 and 3 sort of changed a little bit, but everybody did have our school at the top for a number of different reasons. One of which was just their capabilities on the front end, on the back end, their ability to adjust and to tailor make this platform exactly what we need in Colorado. We thought they were best equipped to do that. And that they really sort of asserted themselves and showed themselves to be a leader in this space. And I know that Rhonda's heart was that she's like, I think she said we shouldn't settle. We should have the best platform. And I would agree with her do that. So I'll turn it over to Ray. Ray, we've built you up as good as we can here. And now as we turn this over to you, it's your job to come through for us so that a year from now, we are looking back on this and saying, wow, what a great decision that was. And for both the association and the 360 plus athletic directors around the state. So I'll shut up now. I'll turn it over to Ray Dretsky, the president and CEO of our school today.
I didn't bring my agenda, the other agenda.
Yeah, it's right here.
Did he talk?
I don't know. Let me see. Can somebody tell him?
Is he muted?
There we go. Can people hear me okay?
Yes.
You can hear me now?
Yes.
Sorry about that. I'll echo something I think Bert said, which is the simple meeting technology can sometimes hang you up the worst. In my normal work week, I'm in meetings with about 7 different conference softwares, and they all work just different enough. So apologies for that. It's wonderful to be here. Thank you for letting me be part of this meeting. And from the bottom of my heart, thank you and bless you for choosing our school today. What a joy. I have to say it was an amazing process, and kudos to Bert and Tom, Rhonda, of course, Bethany, Sarah, and Kathy. Wonderful behind the scenes support from her. She's amazing. And Brandon, of course, for the detailed level of questions, the insightful questions. It was clear to me from the questions that were asked that you've been there. And you felt pain in a lot of areas, and you knew exactly the kinds of things to ask about to make sure that moving forward, you weren't going to keep feeling the same kind of pain. And so I appreciate that, and I'm thankful that we were selected. I also will concur. I think it was exactly the right choice. For those of you that don't know us, I'll tell you a little bit about us in just a moment, but I won't go into a lot of detail. You've got a lot to get through still. But I will also mention one other thing about this process. I've been wildly impressed with Rhonda. She is an absolute tireless advocate for CHSAA and for your schools. She beat us senseless in this negotiation and in this process to make sure that what she was getting was exactly what you needed, and that there were no surprises, and that every stone was unturned and every question was asked. I have to think that if I was a young athlete and getting on a track against her, I would probably have been found with my sweats on in the stands with a hot dog and a Coke instead of running. But she's amazing, and I'm so excited that we'll be working with you. Just a quick touch about our school today. We're a 27-year-old company, originally based in Minnesota, where I live, now based in Florida. We have about 230 people on staff all over the place, and we serve about 8,700 schools. About 5,000 schools use our school as their athletics management platform. We also serve 9 different state associations in various ways. So being a larger company with more people to throw at things and to put assigned to projects and problems, I think that's going to be a blessing for all of you. When hearing some of the pain that you all have dealt with over the years, it's unconscionable to me for you to have to wait so long to get the things that you need. One of the blessings of working with our school today is you're going to benefit from the fact that I'm a little bit attention deficit, which means I'm forcing my whole team to be attention deficit with me. And what that means is we just don't have patience for things that aren't working. It would be absolute foolishness for me to tell you there'll never be a bug or a problem, because it's technology, and particularly with web-based technology, there's 5,000 variables, which browser, which operating system, which version of each, et cetera. How fast is your internet connection from the backseat of your car that you're calling me from? All of those kinds of things can create possible problems. But for me, it's always been, the mantra is it's never what happens to you, it's about what you do about it. And that's built into the DNA of our whole company. And the other thing that I've worked to build into the DNA of our company is that, and this is tough with 230 tech heads, is that it's never about technology. It's only ever about people. And from that perspective, we look forward to serving you. I am happy to answer any questions you have, but that's just a brief snapshot about who we are.
Thank you, Ray. And I think it's so important that our membership here, that every single company that came to the table brought something very special, including big teams. We started off in this space with them, and we've grown with them. And this wasn't about what we all can have our different perspectives around this, but it wasn't about what someone was doing wrong as much as it was about the evolvement of the association. And how do we partner with someone that has that vision to move the association to the next level through electronics, whether that's middle school, even maybe through K through 12, having some resources and some athletic and activity opportunities like we've done with music. So I think it is so important that any company that came to the table, brought their RFP, presented before our staff, here personally that we thank you for your commitment, what you saw, how you wanted to be a part of CHSAA. And transitioning is going to be hard because we are about relationships. We have relationships with Dragonfly and Arbiter and big teams. And so this was very, very difficult because of those relationships. But at the end of the day, the decision was made for what's best for the association, for our coaches, for our ADs, for your administrative assistants. And we are just excited about this next level in moving our association forward through technology and making this easier for them. And Brandon, thank you. You just said everything that we wanted to say, and you said it very well on behalf of the membership. And just so everyone knows, I know there's no questions right now. We just made this decision this week. We just made the announcement to our board. And so we're just in the early infancy stages of finalizing all of the details. But once that happens, Ray has already committed to a series of Zooms with your assistants, as well as some of the things that our board asked for. And Chase, you'll love this, is some piloting prior to. So nothing will be launched through this new system until it's been piloted, till it's been tested. We learned a lot of things over the last 3 years. And so know that it's about rebuilding trust with you. And that's what we're going to stay committed to. And if we have to do it 20 times before it launches onto your plate, that's what Ray and I know. And that's the uniqueness, is we needed a company that had that stability, that support system. And we are just excited about where we're going with our school. And many of you already have a relationship, so it will be a familiar transition for you. So with that said, thank you, Ray. He's been on since 9 o'clock this morning. And so we just appreciate, I think Brandon said it, he walked in the door and he already had half of our basic platform already ready to go. And so that was extremely impressive for not putting our schools in a position. Yes, they have to start from a little bit of scratch, but then also knowing that we're ready to begin this in April. So I'll leave it at that. Not on your agenda, but several of you reached out to me about the conversation that happened at the last LC with maybe some confusion around what is the process for a league to nominate someone to the board of directors. And so Bert has agreed to just kind of do an overview of, because we are going to have several board members that leave at the end of this year, and just give you guys a perspective, give you kind of the timeline and what that looks like when a league is nominating for the CHSAA board of directors. So I'm going to turn it over to Bert.
Thanks, Rhonda. Bylaws 810.1, .2, and .3 are related to the election of new board members from the districts whose terms are expiring. In the case this year, District 9, which is Richard Hargrove, and District 6, which is Michael Hawks, are the ones whose terms are expiring. In 810.1, it notes that each district should have established its rotation of leagues for the position on the board, but each district is not required to have a rotation. Those districts should have notified the commissioner of the replacement, but if not, please do so as soon as possible. That nomination must have the signatures of the league president and all the superintendents represented by that district. At the spring legislative council meeting, a member from a league in that district shall nominate the new board member. So in District 6, somebody from District 6 will stand up and nominate their new board member. The legislative council members from the leagues in that district shall vote on the nominee. If there is a tie, then the entire legislative council would vote on the nominee. And then if leagues do not approve the nominee, then a new nominee will need to be submitted. And those are the bylaws that are related to that. They are in your Constitution and bylaws. Rhonda, I think, oops, you got to unmute yourself, Rhonda. Unmute yourself.
Now I'm Bert again. Something up with my system, so I was frozen. I wasn't muted. I know that's a button a lot of people would like to push for sure. So next thing on the agenda, thank you, Bert, is I'll try not to choke up, and I'm sitting in his chair. But Bert in May presented me with his retirement letter, and I've kind of kept it a secret. I know that's another relevant out there. Rhonda kept a secret, but Bert is going to be leaving us at the end of June. And so there's going to be some restructuring within our office. The position that's going to be open will be an activities position, specifically focused on music, student leadership, speech and debate, as well as some of the additional activities that are being offered at your schools that we are not tapping into a subset of students that probably should be a part and be under the CHSAA umbrella, non-traditional participation opportunities. And that's what we're about. And so this position will be completely focused on activities. Thank you, Sarah. And then again, some shifting of athletic duties within the office with the current administrators that are here. So that position will be posted after the meeting today. Sarah's doing a screen share, and kind of short timeline on when we want to turn this over, but we will make the announcement of the new assistant commissioner in charge of activities during the LC meeting in May. So if you do have any questions regarding the job description or any of the expectations that we're going to have for this position, please don't hesitate to reach out to Sarah, who works with human resources and will be the one that accepts all of the applications for this position, or any one of our staff or myself in regards to what we're looking for this position. It is not going to be posted nationally. We're only going to post it within Colorado. And then we know that we will receive some applicants from outside, but we'd really like to tap into some of the strengths of our activity directors across the state of Colorado that know what we do and can bring that expertise to this position. So I'll leave it at that. Any questions on the position? Well, I want to high five the staff. First of all, amazing job, assistant commissioners, your reports. We have come to our closing remarks. I think it's so important, and someone just texted me in regards to electronic platforms, contracts that CHSAA enters into, that people step back from maybe their personal pieces. We're ready to move forward. There's no consternation around any of our previous partners, our new partners, whether that's ball contracts, bank relationships. Each and every time a contract comes up, no matter if it's an employment contract, you look at your pros and your cons. And so I feel really good about the decisions that are being made by members of our staff and our board to move our association to the next level. So with that said, I just want to thank you all for coming on today. I think it should be duly noted that we are well under the time predicted for this meeting. And I just thank you all, and we'll let you know when we get feedback on season C. So Tom, handing the baton to you for your closing remarks, and everybody have a great rest of the day and rest of the week.
Thanks, Rhonda. This will go pretty quickly, and I have a little activity, so I want everybody to kind of hang in there for a second. Before I do that, I just want you to latch on to two words. One of them is kindness, and the other is selfless. And I had this whole spiel, and I'm not going to take the whole time that I planned. But last night, I was sitting next to my wife. We were just watching some stuff on TV, and I got a text, and it was a text from Bethany. and it just showed an image. It showed an image of an appointment to get a vaccination. And I thought, I wonder why she didn't call me. And so I immediately called her just to kind of get what's up. And the reason she didn't call me is she was trying to get an appointment for my wife, Cleo, as well. Now, there's a whole backstory to that because we've talked about vaccinations with our staff the last couple of weeks. And it seems like after that conversation that each and every one of our staff were worried about the most vulnerable, right, in getting a vaccination. And on our staff, that would be me, for sure, just based on age. But just that whole, the random act of kindness and selflessness that Bethany exhibited is just kind of overwhelming. But it's really kind of the attitude of our entire staff. I could say something about every single one of our staff in terms of how they react to me and treat me on a daily basis. And so my psychic is always good. You know, Nate Thompson talked about the things we can do to kind of not go to our toxic stresses and all those things. And the staff does that for me on a daily basis. And the things that I could say about them would surprise everybody that's on this call. Anyway, so just kind of hang with those words and try to find the random acts of kindness that happen at your schools and in your workplaces, and reach out to your people when you can. The whole thing around gratitude, like Nate Thompson said. All right, so this is the activity. So everybody, I hope you can see me. All right, and so you guys know the emoji for the prayer emoji, right? So we're gonna clap and do the prayer emoji, and with that symbol, we're gonna say peace, all right? And then the next thing is we're gonna put our hands against our chest, and it's snuggled up against our heart. And so when we do this, we're gonna say love, right? Then we're gonna do this with our fingers. As you can see, my right, my index and middle finger together, and then clench down with my thumb. Okay, that symbol is going to be respect. And then we'll do a circle in front of you for everybody. So it goes like this, all right? Love, respect for everybody. Okay, we're going to do that two times. That was the first time. You're going to do the next two with me. And if you can speak it out, you can, I don't know, Ryan, if you can unmute people, right? So we can kind of do it in unison, that would be great. But if not, we're going to do it. So try to follow along with me. All right, here we go. Peace,
Peace,
love, respect for everybody. Okay, one more time. Peace, love, respect for everybody. All right, and that's the way we'll end today. Thank you.
We'd also want to put the link in the chat to the classification for everyone. We'll be emailing it out as well, but wanted to put it in there just so you guys had it. Thank you, Tom.
Thank you, Ryan. Thanks everybody out there. Thanks to the staff. Lots of gratitude. I'm off to get to my vaccination. Thanks, Bethany.
Thanks, guys. Good job today.
You're the best, Tom.